16 lots on the site and roads to be dedicated to the town. 3532 North Road, US Route 9, zoned HRDD, Historic Revitalization Development District, 156.19 acres. Secret negative declaration for a Type 1 action was issued December 6, 2017 by the Town Board. EFG Sabre Heritage SC LLC, formerly known as EFG DRA Heritage LLC owners. Welcome back, guys. Marty?
It should be the remote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, thank you. I'm Martin Berger with EFG Sabre Heritage SC LLC, and with me this evening is our counsel Peter Wise and Kyle Ahern and Stu Messenger and Phil Greeley, our professional team, in connection with the application. With your permission, what I would simply like to do is to give you a synopsis of where we are in terms of the physical activities on the site, then touch base and address maybe four issues that we have discussed with Mr. Welty and Attorney Cooper, just to talk about them, a few other items, and then Kyle can go through the specific site comments that were made, and Mark Schulman could, if you'd like, go through the presentation of the architectural related treatment. So we're all moving forward to hopefully a site plan approval that could be granted in at the next hearing, and that's hopefully where we're headed. So with that said, is it okay if I proceed?
Yes, thanks. Great to hear an update and all the process, all the progress.
No, I just bring the colored site plan, one of the site plans, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So thank you. So on the site we have, can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yep.
On the site we are completing the tree clearing that was recently approved by the board. In fact, I believe that it's 99% or so complete at this time, and I don't believe that we've received any notices or problems or violations from the inspector, so I think everything's going quite well. We anticipate in the next, within the week, to be able to close out that permit, complete it, and perhaps roll the bond that we have up perhaps into a grading permit, which I'll leave the staff members to do, but that's going quite well. I think if you drive by the site, you can see that it has significant sight lines, and now we can clearly see those lovely buildings that are there. We also have started to recondition the Great Lawn, and we restored some of the trailways, which is basically maintenance that we've been doing. And I think the restoration that we've completing on the Great Lawn, combined with the tree clearing, clearly shows our commitment to make the development a reality. We are continuing with our discussions with the town staff and council for the formation of the sewer district for the NYSC FC loan and related documents, and that's moving forward as well. In regard to the administration building, we're continuing to have the structural engineer continue their inspections and reports. We're continuing to have the architectural and engineering team determine the best way to restore the building, and at the moment we have an agreement between the architect and engineer on the scope of what needs to be done, and today we released the surveyors to go and complete the existing conditions survey in order to allow the architects and engineers to proceed forward.
Has bracing been implemented on the administration building?
Bracing has not yet been implemented. There was an area, a portion of the building that the structural engineer recommended bracing in the most recent report. He's now detailing his requirement, and then once that's done, that'll be implemented. And the means and methods for the bracing is such that it's going to also allow for the permanent utilization of the bracing as part of the refurbishment of the building. As you see, I've handed out a couple of photos. We've also done a significant job of cleaning out significant portions of the administration building. As you recall from the drone video a couple of sessions ago, the entire roof collapsed in on the upper floor. So we know that sooner or later, we're planning on using that upper floor in order to put bracing, in order to rebuild the roof system. To do that, we had to take out, I think it was 40-yard containers of debris. And that has basically been completed at this point in time, and you can see from the photos that it looks pretty clean. So we're excited about that, and now with that, the architects and engineers can go up there and do their surveying and so on and so forth. So that piece of work has pretty much been completed.
Have you further decided on a use for that building, or?
In terms of uses for the building, we are talking with converting it to an arts and educational center as a good possibility. And I think I showed you plans that Mark Schulman put together for the reutilization of the building for an arts and performance center. And I might have it here with me tonight if you want to see it again. And then also we are talking to some hotel operators, several of which do not want to use the building, and a few would be interested in using the building. In fact, we have a meeting on site with SHPO in early April for the purpose of talking to them about receiving some sort of grants and their assistance in refurbishing the building. We reached out to them. They seem to be quite excited about it, and we're meeting them early next month. We also have retained the firm Preservation Works that Yvonne recommended to us, and they've been retained to do the photographing of the buildings. That's a requirement of the town as well as the SHPO requirement before we complete the demolition. So they've been authorized to release. We're on their schedule, and I think they're going to plan to get up toward the end of April. The other buildings, the other 5 buildings that are required to be preserved have been secured. They're monitored. They're being maintained. They're checked on. And they're continue to be in good conditions. There's no deterioration or anything else in that regard. The architect, and I think with Yvonne and some of our crew and the demolition people have walked the site and identified portions of the existing buildings and sections that could possibly be reused in the new development, and perhaps Mark could talk about that a little bit more. But they have at least have an understanding of the means and methods to take these pieces out of the buildings and to store them properly and then to reincorporate them. So we have that as well. So in a nutshell, that's where we are in terms of the site activities. We're ready to go forward. We have pretty much completed the buyout of the off-site improvements for the DOT work. We're pretty much ready to go with the site improvements. The demolition contractor and the asbestos contractor have been awarded, and they've been on site doing work, and they're ready to run full steam. In our discussions over the past week or so with staff and your council and our council there were some, I think, 4 points that were raised as being items that we wanted to focus on, and I'd like to just bring them to your attention and tell you what our resolution or suggestion is, and then on a broad scope, and then we can get into the details, of course. In regard to Winslow Gate Road, which is the south entrance, as you know, there's been an issue as to whether or not the road improvement that is there was matched the old easements, and we've researched that through title and the DOT, and make a long story short, we can't find the proper easement that matches the existing conditions of the road. A portion of the property appears to be on our property, and a portion seems to be on the Home Depot property. The easiest way to handle it was to reach out to Home Depot owner and tell them that we would like to collectively dedicate the properties for the town as part of the downtown dedication. And we've opened those discussions, and I think that they're going to be successful, and that's ongoing at the moment. So I think that will most probably be the reasonable and likely outcome to that, and we hopefully will have that addressed before the next meeting. In regard to the architecture, at previous session and the workshops, Mark Schulman and his firm presented design guidelines, and I wanted to, and we can get into details, of course, and see them again, but to confirm, those design guidelines will be for the entire Phase 1. So between what you've seen for the design guidelines in terms of the materials and the colors, combined with the residential facades and the colors and the shoop, and the pitched roof, that will govern the entire Phase 1. The medical office building will be governed by those design criteria. We've confirmed with the supermarket that the supermarket materials and colors will also conform to those design criteria. And as we have discussed, when we're ready to come back for each individual building, we'll come back to the board and present the building with a confirmation of how those materials and colors will be used as it pertains to each building. So I think we have a closed loop on that. The supermarket.
Make one comment really quick. We discussed this a little bit on Tuesday. One thing we just want to make sure with this design, which looked awesome, by the way, if we can just make sure that we have peaked roofs, just because with your next phase with the historical buildings, a lot of them have the peaked roofs. We just want to kind of keep it all looking the same. I mean, I know you guys did do that a little bit in your in our workshop, but
yeah. So the design criteria, design guidelines incorporate peak roofs. And it's a question of where to use them and how to use them. And I think that when we come in the answer is yes, we have that. And the supermarket has that as well. And then on a building-by-building basis, we can evaluate how to use it. And then relative to the buildings next door that have or may be built, we can kind of build them like Legos and decide where they should be incorporated as well. I spoke to the supermarket today, and they asked us for the color of our brick, which, as you know, we're going to hopefully reuse a good amount of brick that's been on site. So they'll coordinate and match our colors, which are in the design guidelines. So I wanted to confirm that. The question arose as to the management and maintenance, particularly of the dedicated right-of-ways, which of course include the roads. But as you know, we have some cases we have sidewalks and parking that is in the right-of-way, and we confirmed with your staff that we will be responsible for all of the maintenance, all of the snow plowing and everything other than the roads. We have this elsewhere in other shopping centers that we own and manage, so we will form a master association. The master association will be responsible for the maintenance and snow plowing of the parking and sidewalk areas that are in the right-of-way. We understand that the town will push its snow into our parking lot and parking spaces, and we'll take that out, and we have agreements that we've done before that deal with this situation. Some of the other areas that the Master Association will handle is the maintenance of the trail network, to the extent that the trail network isn't taken over by a public or a not-for-profit. As I said, the improvements and maintenance in the right-of-ways, other than the roads, the common storm detention and similar systems, and as well as the maintenance of the Great Lawn. Of course, if we don't have a not-for-profit or public entity taking responsibility for that. The commercial parcels will operate as one shopping center. And they, of course, will be subject to the Master Association, and they'll be managed by Sabre Real Estate Advisors. We currently manage about 1.5 million square feet of space. We've been managing properties for 25-plus years, and we're responsible for providing refuge services, snow plowing services, parking lot cleaning, building maintenance repairs, and then each of the tenants and parcel owners reimburse us. So we do all that billing and manage the process, et cetera. And then, of course, each individual parcel owner will be responsible for their own parcel as well. The other issue that that was discussed is perhaps the idea of revising a trigger square footage for the beginning of the demolition of the south and north wings. As you probably recall, the existing the finding statements say that once, in summary, that once the certificate of occupancy is issued for 200,000 square feet of the commercial site, then at that point in time, that'll be the, quote, the north phase demolition trigger, at which point in time we have to provide a payment performance bond, and then within 9 months we have to complete the demolition of the south wing and the north wing. And in summary, we're certainly willing to meet that obligation. There was a discussion about lowering the number, and at first, early on, I thought it kind of made sense, but the more I thought about it, the more I think it doesn't make sense, and I'll explain to you why. The town's position was to protect against a scenario where the site owner completes the lower commercial phase and abandons the project before starting the upper residential phase. And at that time, the phase one was 350,000 square feet, and the figure of 200,000 was set. And I guess the figure of 200,000 was set thinking that a developer could make his money perhaps on 200,000 square feet and run away and leave the north unattended to.
Well, sufficient income to be able to start.
Yeah, and we don't, while I don't think that can happen, but I understand the point that 200,000 was the point of becoming financially perhaps not interested in the rest. So we don't disagree. At the moment, and that was out of 350,000 square feet. At this point in time, our total commercial is 193,000 square feet. So we all know that our costs have ballooned. We've had subsequent years of carry, real estate taxes, approvals. The work on site and off site has significantly grown. Costs have grown. To think that we could absorb all of these costs and be profitable at a lower number, I don't think is viable. I think we can all agree it's not viable. If the development cost years back was calculated to be at 200,000, today we have costs that have ballooned that. We have to absorb all of the infrastructure costs, the site work, the off-site. We're certainly not going to be able to achieve that economic result at a lower square footage. So if the thinking was that 200,000 was the number, we think 200,000 should still be the number, notwithstanding the fact that our costs have gone up quite a bit. The idea that you want to have a trigger that would enable Sabre to complete enough of the non-residential to support the demolition of the north, we probably think, again, 200,000 is the right figure, because with the completion of the commercial, we potentially have the ability to refinance and use some of that money for the north demo. Until we complete the commercial, we don't have that capability. We don't want to be hamstrung in completing successfully the commercial, converting it to a permanent loan, and then perhaps recycling money into the north. Notwithstanding that, we do know that when we complete the south, we're still about $18 million in the hole. And as I've said over and over again, we have to be successful on 100% of this project in order to recoup our money and make a profit. The commercial doesn't begin to make a dent in returning of capital, much let alone making profits. And I'll submit this to you in more detail. I don't need to beat around the bush or go into further examples, but we stand ready to meet the obligation to as the findings state, which is to complete the 200,000, provide the payment performance bonds, and then demolish the north and south. In practicality, we're probably going to demolish the south at a much earlier point in time on our own volition. And that's because it's in our best interest to do so, and in order to accomplish what we want to accomplish on the site.
Okay.
So that south end building will probably come down early on. There was some discussion about the idea of making the intersection of Winslow Gate Road at the first intersection a roundabout that was discussed, and the engineers came up with a wonderful design of doing a roundabout, and Kyle could show it to you. It seems to work quite well. It'll save some monitoring and signalization dollars, and I think it looks quite nice. So we're in favor of that, and Kyle could show it to you. So with that, I have Mark Schulman, who is available to walk through again, if you'd like, the architectural and materials and the design guidelines. And we have Kyle and Stuart and Phil Greeley available to discuss the specific comments. And before I end, I'm compelled to again thank you for your time and remind you that we are working hopefully toward an April site plan approval, which will allow us to complete our demolition and asbestos in time to turn over our first building pads. I see Liz is smiling, and I'm sure that smile is in anticipation of the site plan approval in April. Thank you, Liz.
Is there any additional site plan changes you've made since the last meeting? Other than the roundabout,
yes,
that you want to mention?
well, the roundabout we have done a concept for. It's not part of what was submitted in February since the last meeting. But what is included in the submitted plans, I can go through a quick, and actually let me zoom in here a little bit. Okay. Wrong button. Marty is I don't see the roundabout here.
Oh, it's probably not there.
No. Well, we might not be able to go over that. Let me see.
Let me see if I can find it. Go ahead. Talk about something else.
Okay, so I'll delay real quick. All right. So as you know, the last round of comments essentially focused on the switchover, if you want to call it that, from the first objective was determining consistency. The last set of comments was changing gears into site plan review.
Right.
A lot more detailed information was requested at that time to do a site plan review. So the last set of plans, the big changes aren't necessarily changes at all. They're just adding a lot more detail into those plans so that you can check things like accessibility into buildings from parking areas, adding inverts to the sanitary sewer lines, the drainage lines, the drainage management practices. There's subsurface infiltration and detention chambers located mostly along the western property line, below the parking lots along the western property line. The landscaping also got a lot more detailed. The plantings themselves previously were just a generic option or menu, if you want to call it that, of possible plantings. We went in, we identified every specific planting along the streetscapes, in parking lots, essentially everywhere except along foundations, because the footprints of the buildings are not 100% set in stone, as we've discussed. We will be coming in at a later date for architectural review of these specific buildings. So at that time, we can give that level of detail to the landscaping as well. But all the public the public roadways and the parking lots, like I said, all that was identified per plant. The hardscape specifically at the town center along Winslow Gate Road here. There's some pretty detailed, actually I'll zoom in a little further so you can see some of the...
You can see all the bump outs and everything on the road.
Yeah, there's a lot of, because of the parallel parking and the sidewalk areas, there's plaza areas, there's a lot of detailed there's some outdoor dining here. There's different patterns and materials used within those sidewalk areas. That's all been detailed out to show what those exact finishes are going to be. So there's a specific plan for that. The hardscape within the town center area that was added to the set with the last set.
Okay, that basically fleshed out a lot more details.
Right. So as opposed to the more 30,000 foot view, we dived into that type of detail. The lighting contours were added. Truck turning was added to show that the fire trucks and the grocery store delivery trucks, ambulances, refuse, garbage trucks can get to all the different refuse areas that are shown. The town center itself, during architectural review that Mark worked on with the town representatives. During that process, some of the town center footprints and those plaza areas that I talked about, some of those were revised to give a more kind of specific design per the new guidelines that were established. I think that's the gist of it.
Have the roundabout there now.
All right, yeah, so that is what was provided on the plans. Since that plans that was submitted, one of the things that AKRF had actually asked us to look into was the possibility of a roundabout, which I'm showing here. Which does a couple things for us. It removes the need for a left turn lane on Hudson View Drive coming down. Mm-hmm. This Hudson View Drive along here and Winslow Gate Road right here. It also negates the need for installing loops at the intersection for a possible future traffic light that may or may not be warranted in the future. And the monitoring that's associated with that wouldn't have to be done because it's just a roundabout now. It's not a potential situation where you'd have to go from stop signs to a stoplight. So shown here is what that would look like. It pushes a little bit further into the Great Lawn, which is from what I can tell, I would say that's the one drawback. But I think besides that, I think it's actually a good option. So we're interested to hear what the board thinks.
It bumps out into there. Right. And it keeps the traffic flowing through there, and I think we'll hear later from Anthony, but thanks.
Yep.
I know you probably don't know who's going where yet, but was there any change of use with any of the buildings?
No. All the there was a slight shuffling, I guess you could call it, between retail and restaurant within the town center, but the square footages and all that remain exactly the same, and that only is the case in the town center area.
All right, thanks for the update. I want to move forward, I guess. Eric, do you have anything to say before I go to Liz?
I don't think so. I think you responded to a lot of the comments in the staff letter, and Liz has a bunch more. There's been a lot of good progress. Thanks.
Right.
But maybe we'll get a report from Liz, and also Anthony Russo's here tonight. He can maybe give the board an update on traffic.
It's not in my memo because I didn't see the roundabout, but I think it seems to look pretty good. As I think you guys already mentioned before, we've moved from looking at the project assessment findings, modified development master plan, into a little bit more nitty-gritty site plan details. What I've tried to do, if there were any remaining issues that weren't absolutely sort of nailed down related to the findings or the mitigation measures, I moved those into site plan comments. So the plans are in pretty good shape. They are very detailed. I really got into the code. I didn't catch everything. I caught a lot. So
Can I interrupt you just one moment?
Sure.
I forgot to add one element that is probably should precede what Liz is saying. We did receive all the comments, and a lot of them were meaningful. we felt that many of them should be addressed before site plan approval, and we thought that many of them could be addressed after site plan approval. So what we did was we took the liberty of suggesting this to Mike Welty and Attorney Cooper, and we marked it up. So we had our professional team go through it and highlight it in green or yellow as to the items we thought should be addressed before site plan approval, and those which we thought could be subject to or after site plan approval, and we sent it off to your team. So we're hoping that that'll reduce the number of items that need to be addressed.
And
At
by
this point in
after,
time.
he's referring to conditions of approval.
Yeah, I mean,
not-
That's what I figured.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
I just wanted you to know
Fine.
that before.
Yeah, we did get that, and I haven't yet shared it with Liz.
If
and
you
Derek,
emailed it
but-
to me, I wouldn't have seen it today anyway. But I look forward
get
to
that
looking at
yesterday.
that. And I know that when we discussed this Tuesday, there was discussion of possibly doing an offline meeting. I touched on the whole issue of recreational resources. I'm not going to go into detail there because you've already discussed that. Regarding the architectural elements, I think the goal here is to come up with a complete sort of packaged, maybe repackaged design guideline set, and there were a few more pointers.
We did that, it's here.
Oh, okay. So, let's see. And then I did touch on that we did have another report and did ask about whether the bracing would be put into place, and we suggested a quarterly review, which I think was kind of suggested in the letter anyway. We also asked for possibly some kind of a report about the other buildings. I realize they're in pretty good condition, but it would be helpful to have that. I did make comments on the lighting and landscaping plan. I won't go into detail because there was a lot of detail on the plans previously, so I got into it a little more, so we can work through those issues. I have some commentary, and we briefly discussed this, about the size of the right-of-ways. I was following code, and the way I view the roads that you have coming into the site and going through, they're somewhere between a local road and maybe a connector, because we are technically connecting two state roads. But I know that there's a desire to have more of a downtown/neighborhood feel. So I think between engineering and planning, we can discuss how big do those right-of-ways need to be, and you've already touched on maintenance and management and all that. I did notice in the grocery parking area, it's the only place I noticed this, that some of the drive aisles are a little smaller. All the other drive aisles for the other, commercial are 26, I believe.
Yeah, so within the grocery store parking lot, there's no access to buildings within that area, so we didn't provide a 26 feet is typically for fire access. So those drive lanes are all 24 feet, and the fire truck would take the outside roads to the grocery store or wherever else they're going.
Okay, I know there was also a plan scale issue. When I scaled them, it looked like they were 22 feet, so we should follow up with engineering and figure out what those need
Sure, I
to
mean,
be.
cars seem to be only getting bigger. Everybody's got trucks now, so.
Right,
Gotta make sure that.
Until
fits.
gas goes up again, then they'll get smaller again.
right,
Yeah.
of course.
But if you recall, we do
Goes in
have
cycles.
plenty of area there. In fact, we reduced at the county's suggestion parking spaces and proposed to make it land banks, so we have plenty of room there if we need to.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and that was in the other part of it. This comment was only pertaining to the grocery. The rest of the parking layout looked like it had plenty of drive aisle.
We'll double check that.
Yep, and then I had a few comments about kind of filling in only tiny gaps in the pedestrian pathway. Those are my major comments, and I'm hoping that we will end up with some kind of an offline meeting to hash out some of these issues.
Sure.
So,
Okay, thanks, Liz. And thanks for coming up, Anthony, and give your views on the roundabout and other traffic mitigation.
Good evening. Just seeing the roundabout really for the first time tonight. I like the idea of the roundabout, and I think it offers traffic calming. So it's better for safety. It's also better for pedestrians that are crossing at that location. I'll review it in more detail with the traffic consultant for the applicant to make sure the grades work and the deflection angles are all correct. But my initial reaction is positive to it. It also will eliminate the need, as was stated, for putting in traffic signal infrastructure and putting in sensors, because we're not looking to see in the future if a traffic light will go there, because it would be a roundabout. So we'll do some more review on that, but I think it's something good for the project. With that said, though, on monitoring, the other intersection that's part of Phase 1 monitoring is this intersection right here, just going southeast of where the roundabout might be. I looked at the plans provided by the applicant to make certain that what we requested during the EIS is included in the drawings, and they have included sensors in the ground to do traffic counts to see if a potential traffic signal may be warranted at some point in the future at that location. So the plans are consistent with what we have been discussing. They're also going to rough in, as necessary, any infrastructure for a traffic signal, just in case it is warranted in the future. I also looked at the highway work permit application the applicant has submitted to New York State DOT to see that it's consistent with what we discussed during the EIS process. The initial application for Phase 1 development is consistent with the 50% development traffic generation level. So they have to New York State DOT traffic signal drawings for Winslow Gate Road and Route 9, for Fulton Street and 9G, and for Hudson View Drive and Route 9. So that has been submitted to DOT. They will also be working with DOT as part of the highway work permit application to make traffic signal modifications at several intersections, also sidewalk construction that is ADA compliant. They will also be conducting monitoring as part of Phase 1 at several unsignalized intersections in the study area to see if they warrant traffic signals. And also at the state roadways, the driveways coming out of the site, they also have the sensors in the ground as part of the monitoring program. So their highway work permit application's in good shape and is consistent with what we have looked at before. They're also working with the county, Dutchess County, to secure any easements. They're still working on that. I don't know if they can give an update on that when I finish. We already talked about the monitoring at the internal intersection. The other thing is, one of my comments on the most recent submission has to do with providing more detail on the monitoring plan itself.
Okay.
It's mentioned that, we already talked about the sensors in the ground. They mentioned they'll be doing ATR counts, which are the tubes on the road. They'll be doing manual data collection at different phases of development. So what I have asked the applicant, and I spoke to Phil, is maybe to provide text, but also provide maybe a diagram, a flow chart, which someone could easily look at and say, okay, this is where we are in the project, this is the type of monitoring that has to be done, this is the type of reporting that DOT could expect and the town could expect, and when will we get that information and what would it look like? So Phil is going to work on that, and I think that will make an easier presentation and easier for the town staff to follow about when these different milestones have to be met.
Okay. Yeah, that's, the technology to allow that monitoring is great, because then it gives you an idea of what mitigations need to be put in at what phases of the project and that.
So overall, it's moving along.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Let's see, public hearing. Yeah, go to Don, you have any engineering SWIP issue like that?
Our comments are split up into general, water, sewer, and drainage. On general, they've already mentioned about Winslow Gate Road, and about the formation of the sewer and water districts, which are obviously quite important to this project. We still need to hear from the town highway superintendent about the design of the cul-de-sacs, if he's okay with those, and the retaining walls. And then the other major thing that we still think is lacking is utility profiles for all of the utilities, including the drainage, water, and sewer. So those are the major
You
things.
have profiles then?
We have them now, actually, so.
Or tell them? Or no?
We have those, by the way.
Okay.
So we'll get those over to you.
All right, thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Public hearing, I think, yeah.
This time I move that we open the public hearing for this project.
Second.
Moved and seconded to open the public hearing. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Start with Stephanie Lewison. Is first on the
Are we
list.
supposed to leave?
Yep, there's the public hearing microphone we have set up tonight. So you guys can stay there at the.
Pardon me?
You guys can stay there because we have
We
a
can stay
public, we've added a public hearing microphone. Just
Perfect.
just make sure it's on,
Just turn that on.
just make sure it's on, hit the switch, and it takes about 3 seconds to warm up.
Whoa. How about if it pops out?
There you go.
All right.
Can I try to move it without popping it out? There we go. Can you guys hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. So my name's Stephanie Lewison. I've been to a number of these meetings. I'm the active participant in the Town Historic Commission. And so I did review the submission prior to the meeting tonight, and I just had 2 questions/comments for the developers. First of all, I would very much like to thank you guys for being attentive to the protection of the large copper beech tree, which is next to the director's residence. I did see on the demolition plans, they show that the tree is to be protected. And I did see also on those plans that there's orange construction fencing that'll be placed around the director's residence to protect it, presumably during demolition activities. And my only request is that the plans be amended to show such fencing around the copper beech tree itself, its drip line, also known as the critical root zone, which would protect its root system from compaction by machinery that would be in the area during demolition. Such compaction would significantly reduce the lifespan of the tree, would probably potentially kill it within a few years, so it'd be sad to go through all this effort to save it and then have it.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, so we did work with Sabre to make sure that the tree was protected during the tree clearing work that has been going on. We will be bringing an arborist, the town will be bringing in an arborist to look at the tree. There was some concern from the applicant about the health and the viability of that tree. So in fairness, we want to just get somebody out to look at it and give us an opinion about whether it really will survive or not, and
Sure.
if not, then it may need to be removed. But but if it's going to stay, we will certainly make sure that it is protected.
Okay, that's wonderful, yeah. I mean, certainly the opinion of a certified arborist would be
Exactly.
fine. And then my only other question or comment was, I mostly was studying the demolition plans, and I saw that there was a note on, I think it was the demolition plans, I don't know, it was page 266 of the PDF document.
Oh, yes, that one.
There was a lot of flipping around and skimming of things for sure. That's out of 700 and something pages, but anyway, when I was looking at it, there was a list of stipulations from, I guess, the letter of resolution document with SHPO. And number 6 states, existing conditions of each of the surviving buildings, structures, and ruins at the campus shall be photo documented prior to demolition or mothballing. I didn't have a copy of the actual letter of resolution, so I'm only assuming that that is verbatim from the document. And I just was wondering if there was any kind of clarification about if that means all existing structures, whether or not there are the 5 or 6 that are going to be retained, whether all the structures will be photo documented, or if it's just the ones that won't survive or the ones that will survive. I didn't know if there was some resolution about
Do you want
that.
to answer
Yeah,
that?
so in regard to the beech tree, the copper beech tree, yes, I agree with your comments. We did have one arborist look at it, and now we're going to have another one look at it. In regard to the photo documentation, I don't remember the answer to the question, but I do know that whatever that scope was, that's what we hired preservation works to do. Yvonne, do you know if it's all the buildings or just the ones that are protected? I can't remember. I think it's probably all of them because I don't
think that we've settled on what the scope covers. However, I believe it should be all of them.
Yeah, I believe it is. Whatever the scope was in SHPO, and I do believe it's all of them, because the purpose of it was to document what's going away. So I'm pretty certain it was all of them.
Well, it does say prior to demolition or mothballing, so
Yeah.
to my mind, that meant the things that will be demolished and the things that will be kept would all
Yep.
be documented, but I just wanted to
Makes
have
sense.
that clarified.
Yep.
All right. Well, my only closing comment is just to say that I was in Saratoga Springs for a conference earlier
this week, and I was very impressed by how the new construction along their Broadway kind of blends in with the certainly historic architecture that they have along the street. And I'm hopeful that we'll have a similar kind of integration here at this site, even though obviously with less historic architecture, but I am pleased with what I've been seeing on the architectural plans.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thanks for your comments. There was no one else signed up for the public hearing, but does anyone else in the audience wish to comment at this time? Seeing none, I move we adjourn the public hearing to April 18th, 2019. Moved and seconded to adjourn the hearing. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Can we respectfully ask what do we?
Be able to submit by April 8th
Yes, could we?
for the April meeting.
We'd like to request if we can submit by April 8th for the April meeting.
Well, what we may have to do, I think in that case, just given the tremendous volume of information that we've had to go, is maybe schedule a special meeting, which we've done before.
Our thought was to try not to ask you to come back for a special
Right.
meeting if not necessary, but if you think that's the best way to do
That
it.
probably would be the best way to go about it. That would also give us more time to, really focus on and hopefully get further along. So why don't we talk about this following tonight and see if we can get something
Okay.
Yeah,
scheduled.
get something scheduled with the department offline.
All right, thank you. We do have sets of the design guidelines. Would you like them, or?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll pass them to Carol.
More
Well,
material,
thank you.
earlier we can get it.
Excuse me, I have a couple of questions.
Oh, yeah, right. We didn't go around the board. Yeah, we didn't go around the board yet. Yeah.
I thought we didn't do that. I was about to do that, so let him distribute that, and we'll start around the board, and I guess I will start with Peter.
You want design
In the findings statement and elsewhere, you reference a master agreement and a homeowners association. Those are two separate entities?
There'll be a master association.
Master association.
That's all.
And a homeowners association?
No, just a master association that will be responsible for the general improvements or the.
Is what's proposed, but I think what you're saying is the findings give the flexibility to go either way.
No, well, I think, I don't know the section you're referring to, but I believe there was a distinction, not in the findings, but the findings we're talking about. The master association is for the commercial portion, right? But the HOA could be for residential.
Sure. It could be in phase two, right?
So it'd be two, okay.
Yeah,
To be
let me see,
determined.
let me just introduce myself, Peter Wise, on behalf of the applicant. There's, the terms are very similar, but they're not exactly the same thing. Our thought is that for the commercial component of the project, what we'll do is we'll create what Marty's referring to as a master association. That's not the same as an HOA or a condominium. It's literally just a membership association of the different lot owners of the commercial component, who will get together and fund this work. Homeowners associations.
I understand what they're, I've done it, so I understand what it is. My question is, the master association, if you have an outline that sets forth, you don't have to in great detail, but would set forth what the responsibilities will be of the membership, it would go a long way to our understanding.
Oh, we can do that for you. Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
That would.
Yes, we can
answer
provide that to you. Yes,
a
that's
lot of questions.
easy enough.
Because I know there are questions about whose responsibility will be to do certain things on site.
Yes.
After they take possession. If you could provide us with that,
Yes,
would be great.
yes, we can. We can do that.
In response to a question, you mentioned there's a memorandum of understanding that's attached to this property with regard to water and sewer. And you referenced a meeting with town representatives, I don't know if they were elected or whether they're with our staff, where the town representatives represented that you may not need to apply or establish a district, a water district.
In the event that one's already set up.
Yeah, see, we see record of a Hudson River Psychiatric Center water district having already been created. And if it has already been created, and I believe it has, then there may not be need to create a new district to serve the same purpose.
All right, can you share that information?
It has been shared with us. We're looking into it. It does appear that that district that was set up is not just for the site, but for.
And the state
other-
lands, correct, the site of the state lands.
And some other lands as well. So we'll look into as to whether or not, there may be need to create a water district for.
And if there is, there's no problem,
Right.
there's no issue with it.
The MOU, the responsibility of the MOU is to set a district up. That will be adhered to, whether it's already set up or has to be.
Or has to be set up.
And
That's
the
right.
MOU also provides that at some point, the parties can revise the MOU upon mutual agreement. So that's fine. Just want to know what it is and when it's going to happen.
We're waiting for the town right now with respect to the water district. The sewer district, we're all working together, we're all collaborating together right now to form it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, it was one other thing I wanted, just for the engineers to keep an eye on. And that is in the geotech report, all 5 proposed residential structures are currently below the groundwater level. And the engineers have represented that they are going to remediate. Just so it would be a good idea for us to keep an eye on it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Peter. Ben, do you have any site plan comments or anything at this time?
No, I don't at this time, but I do drive by there 4 or 5 times a week. Since you cleared the land, it's generated a lot of interest. I see people stopping there, taking pictures, walking around looking at it. It's really good to see that, so.
Could I ask one more quick question, and that's with regard to the trigger? Who is going to be engaged in the negotiation for that trigger? Will it be the town board or the planning board?
Well, at this point, ultimately, it's a planning board issue because it's a mitigation measure that was initially crafted for the town board for the original development master plan.
Right.
Just a little bit of background for that. The initial concern was, particularly with the original development master plan, you had a specific commercial phase down below at the bottom of the hill, and then a residential phase at the top of the hill. And the intent going forward from day one, when DRA, EFG, and now Sabre came to the town to say, we've got a master plan, was to figure out a way of really integrating the two and coming up with your own sort of community that, on this property. And the concern was, well, what happens if the commercial phase is built, but then the rest of the project is abandoned and you don't have an integrated project, you just have more commercial along Route 9.
Right.
And so at the time, the way that we dealt with that, and it was mutual, we were working with the developer in coming up with a trigger, a square footage trigger of commercial space that would allow the developer to move forward enough with the commercial development to have enough money, essentially, to move forward with the demolition of the north and south wings, because the north and south wings are really the largest structures that need to be demolished up on top. And so if the worst-case scenario occurred and commercial phase was the only thing that got built, at least you would still have a more marketable up top.
I think we pretty much get it.
Do you? Okay.
So my question is, can you, I don't want to cut you short. Can you provide us with any data to support, let's say, for instance, if you want 200K, do you have any data to support that we can, at least we'll have something on the table, that we can discuss?
So that's where I was going, Peter. But the issue is, obviously, I don't think the economic data that Marty, you were referring to, you want to open up. But
I can respond.
Oh,
you don't have to do it now.
Yeah, what I would suggest is what I would suggest is providing it to us so staff can review and then we can talk about it, because the issue is now you've got more of an integrated development, right. And how the concern about having two separate sites.
Now there's apartments down there along in the phase one as well.
Right, and the initial 2,000 square feet, 200,000 square feet was based on an anchor tenant that was the big box, which is no longer there. So
it's called the carrot and the stick.
Sure,
So if we give, we have, you want the carrot and we have the stick. So I just want to make sure that we don't give away so much of the stick, that it's no longer useful.
Well, let me respond if I may. First, I agree. I agree that we have integrated the commercial and residential so that the assurance that it'll be a integrated community is now better served. But in regard to the carrot and the stick, we absolutely agree with the carrot and the stick, and we're not looking to change the carrot and the stick. If 200,000 square feet was the proper agreed-upon threshold, given the total cost of the project, we're perfectly happy having the same 200,000 square feet, notwithstanding the fact that the cost of the project has ballooned by tens of millions of dollars.
And cost aside, let me just add
It's as simple as that. I mean, it doesn't, you don't need, the 200,000 was an agreed upon based on the total project. We're not changing it.
Right, the commercial square footage is still 350,000. So the 200,000 was based on that square footage of commercial. And then
Yeah, we still have 350,000 square feet of commercial, and we're still keeping it 200,000.
It's just that there's less than 200,000 in Phase 1 now, so that was the thing that brought on the discussion about it.
So yeah, because you couldn't lease more than 200 anyway. But listen, it's a simple math. I mean, you can show on the back of a napkin, we can show you that we're negative by about 18 plus million by the time we successfully complete Phase 1, which is exactly what we're negative today. We can take that loss today and be in the same position as finishing Phase 1 and going away.
Well, we appreciate you're committed to the project, but we need to discuss through these issues. As David suggested, there's offline discussions with that at the next workshop. Do you have anything further, David, as to our procedure?
I don't know if Peter will let me, that's the, no.
Yeah,
just joking. No, obviously, you could see, we're diving into the weeds, which is an illustration of that we are moving the position, or this plane into position to land, and so the major issues are really coming to a head and are being worked out. I think when the comments come back and we've kind of, Mike and I can go through what does need to be a condition of approval and what needs to be resolved now, but let us meet internally and then come back to you guys on that.
Sounds good. And then at the time, we'll do a resolution for conformance as well as conditional.
Yes, there'll be three actions for the board. One is the secret findings, because you are as an involved agency, you have to make your own secret findings, which you can adopt the town boards, but obviously we can discuss that. The consistency, the development master plan consistency, and then site plan subdivision approval.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue around the board. Ben, you were finished.
Very well said.
You're finished, Ben, with your comments. Okay, Paul.
I do have one other question. The fire department. I heard somewhere that you've given 2 acres of property for the fire department?
There's land set aside for the fire department, and there are some ongoing discussions with the fire department as to their potential use or some possible alternatives. But yes, we have dedicated an area for the fire department.
Okay, good.
Was that up on the top somewhere?
Yeah, it's currently to be lot 14.
Okay.
Right up here at the north.
That's it?
All right, thanks.
About 14, okay.
Nicole?
No, I don't have any more questions, but I just wanted to say you guys are doing a great job. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
You too.
Hi, just a quick thing. Can you put up the thing with the roundabout again?
Sure.
You mentioned that it might encroach into the Great Lawn. I'm trying to picture in my mind where that is and whether or not it, first of all, do you know how much you might be encroaching in there? Because that's a pretty large area, isn't it?
Right. So essentially the old curb line, you can imagine just a straight line
I see,
connecting
okay.
both sides.
All right.
So we're only talking about one lane of traffic, just bumping coming out
Right,
around.
okay.
And there will be landscaping within the roundabout, so it's essentially net no change, but you know,
Right.
it is kind of curved out there.
Are you also thinking about landscaping around the, was that the northern end of the roundabout to kind of make it not as noticeable? Right where, right
we'd
there.
actually like
yeah,
to
that
keep,
area.
Or is that just?
this over here, we'd actually like to keep open so that
Just
there's
blends.
some viewing between the two, yeah.
Blends
Right.
into the lawn.
All right, okay, thank you. I mean, it's great, I saw some of the architectural drawings, I like what you're doing, and it's quite nice. And how you're tying in what's there with what you're building, including all of the surrounding areas such as Paris and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple of comments myself. I think this, you know, the rail trail behind Home Depot is going to be coming up into your development eventually. So I'd like to see, and there's basically hundreds, if not thousands, of students and other apartments on Fox Run, et cetera, back there that could potentially be used in the grocery store. It's only a quarter mile away along that trail, so I'd like to see some kind of pedestrian connection from that trail to the grocery store in some way.
Just so you know, we met with Scenic Hudson, and we met with the county on the trail, and what they would like is for the trail to come between lot 6 and 1,
Which
just
is
slightly to the left.
So we're
Right there.
Yeah, so last go around, we had actually added in these steps here.
Just so you know, they'd like to have the trail come to between lot 6 and 1, and almost have a public wide entrance at that location.
Which is lot 6 there.
The residential.
It's the residential.
Oh, that one down
And
there,
maybe you
okay.
should zoom
So
out a
that's
little
one
bit.
connection, but I was just wondering more on the south end of to get quicker access to the.
So the problem
versus going
with-
all the way around.
Right, so the problem with the southern area is the rail bed there is quite elevated and
Okay.
far away from the property line. So it'd be, you know, you actually don't get to this point until
You're at grade.
we're on our, at grade and able to connect on our property.
Okay. So always think of the shortest walking distance or shortest biking distance between
Right.
two things.
And for a lot of those students, the shortest distance will be coming up
Route 9,
Winslow
I
Gate,
guess, too.
right?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of dorms on the west side of Route 9, but also a lot
Also
of
east side,
dorms
yeah.
and apartments on the east side, which
Yep.
are now going to flank that rail trail.
Right.
So, all right, as long as you're in conversations with the county. And the other question I had was, in the recreation standpoint, I still don't see any active recreation in Phase 1 for these apartments, such as a court or a playground or something. And I don't know if you want to consider that in Phase 1 or how that ties into the active recreation part of Phase 2, or how long it would be before those
Yeah, so
apartments
there's-
have access to something like that.
There's still no on-site active proposed. So the passive recreation is
All the trails, yeah.
is all the trails and the Great Lawn, open space, and the active recreation will be providing the fee for.
Okay. You said you wanted to talk a little bit about the architecture tonight, or?
Only if you would like a further elaboration on the materials that have been provided. If you're fine with them, we're fine closing.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of it last week. You presented, Mark presented that last week, so I think we're good with that, and we'll look at the further
Okay.
details that you've added into it. Go ahead, Rock.
I wanted to ask, to piggyback on what Carl was saying about the rail trail. Now, you said that there was going to be public access at some point between lots 1 and 6. So having used the rail trails a lot around here, with public access, one of the issues is also where do you park to get to the public access? Is there been any thought in working with anybody?
I could tell you what the county's thoughts were.
Okay.
The county's thoughts were that they wanted to connect the parking and the park across Route 9 to the trail network.
Oh.
Yeah, that makes sense, so.
You know, they understand we won't have parking, but they want to be able to have the park and people bicycling and walking to be able to go from there up the trail and then down south. I mean, they have a lot of pieces to connect, but that's their vision, that's their plan.
Yeah, that would allow people at Quiet Cove to connect in and go down to the walkway.
Because I was thinking with all the, because they were, the excess of parking and they're gonna land bank some of that, maybe if
zoom out
they
just
could
a touch.
find a reasonable place for public access other than what they were initially thinking of, you would have some, you'd have a couple spaces where people could come in.
In reality, we have Lot 2, which is right there, in front of the medical office, which has a tremendous amount of parking, and I'm sure that some people will park there and take their bikes and go or hike and go.
All right. Just a thought.
I mean, I think the majority of people using that trail will be, residents of that area, of the community to get access to the walkway over the Hudson, and that's just rail trail.
Rocco, what you're talking about is sort of a trailhead of some kind.
Well, whenever we use the trails, it's always, we have to think about, okay, where are we gonna go and find a place at the park? The city of Poughkeepsie doesn't have a lot of parking for that. Sometimes we go behind the Stop and Shop on Route 44, because there's an area up there where you can park. There's not a lot of spots there.
Right.
So we have to kind of pick and choose where we park in order to get there. It was just a thought, because of the fact that you have land bank and
I think in reality, we're an open commercial shopping center. We have 600, 700 parking spaces. I'm sure people are going to park and take their bikes and hike and walk.
All right, well, I don't know if you know, you might not know, but you guys know where the gym is on Titusville. They have set aside parking in the back, and that's also another place where we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the county, I'm sure, will, the variety, as they develop this trail segment, that they'll work on a variety of access points to understand it. All right. I think we're good.
I move that the planning board direct town departments, town consultants, and outside agencies to continue to engage in detailed site plan and subdivision review, specifically site plan and subdivision plat review of Phase 1, and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, including but not limited to 1 through 16? Yep.
Second.
Moved and seconded, motion,
I'll send you
called to
notes.
question, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Marty, can I ask one quick question? On the master association that you described, will that, could that be provided in the form of a covenant, or is it going to be strictly a private arrangement? I guess the reason I ask is in another development where that was an important consideration, it was established as a covenant so that future owners other than the applicant would be equally bound by it.
Eric, I think the simple answer to that is that the master association document itself, and I'll work this out with David, can likely be recorded, and if it's recorded, then it serves the same purpose, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a signature.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks,
Thanks,
Liz.
everyone.
Excuse me, just one point of clarification. Should we proceed to perfect the details and incorporate the roundabout?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that looks good. I
we
that'll
think so.
Keep traffic flowing in that area.
Oh, there we go.
for you.
Just peeking.
See, we weren't that long.
Go sit in the audience. Good
Yeah, that was good.
Go sit in the audience.
Bye.
Sign up for a phone call.
I switched.
Two extra things.
Good night. Good night.
Anybody
Hi,
else
Liz.
needs this?
All right, we'll move on to our
Anybody else?
next public hearing is Eastdale Village amended site plan public hearing for a proposed third amendment to a previously approved mixed-use Eastdale Village site plan, including redistribution of approved uses among buildings in the development and modifications in site infrastructure, lighting, and landscaping. 935 Dutchess Turnpike, Victory Lane rear, and 15 Victory Lane zoned MHC, McDonald Heights Center, and IH Heavy Industrial Districts, 63.62 acres and 20.11 acres, and 38.01 acres and 2.5 acres, 7.5. And secret findings for a type 1 action were adopted March 15, 2018. Site plan and special use permit conditional approval issued July 12, 2018, as amended through December 13, 2018. MHTC Development LLC, Eastdale Residential 1 LLC, and Premier Eastdale LLC, and Lot 2A Victory LLC owners. Got a lot of owners.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Kane, representing MHCC Development.
Eric Schlobum, Inside Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture.
Welcome, and let us know why you're back again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. Yes, we're here for a third amendment to the site plan. I thought I would just give you a little update on where we are construction. If you haven't been by the site, it really is going well out there. What we have under construction currently, and this is Route 44 across the bottom here, that way towards Poughkeepsie, this way to Pleasant Valley. Buildings 11, 10, and 9 are under construction. Those are each 16-unit, 3-story residential buildings. Building 1 is under construction. That's a 50-unit residential building. And Building C, we've lettered buildings are commercial and numbered are residential by our convention. Anyway, so Building C, the medical office building, is under construction as well. So those 5 are currently being built and framed. 11 and 10 and 9 are mostly sited now. So again, you can see kind of some of the progress there. We have submitted for building permits for buildings 7 and 8 as well. Again, 2 residential buildings. And we're here tonight to talk about some tweaks to the site plan and a couple of the buildings on site. We're going to again ask for architectural review on. One is the mail leasing building. This was formerly the fitness center. We moved the fitness program over to the community center and have proposed that as our long-term leasing office in this building. And the little commercial cottages, this building was Building D, and it mirrored Building B with commercial on the first floor and residential above. So we kind of modified because we wanted to add this green area in here, so we split Building D into D1, D2, D3, and D4 is what we've called them, the commercial cottages, each of these being 500 square feet, and we're here for architectural review on those buildings as well. So our purpose for being here is kind of a threefold. One is there have been, or maybe fourfold even, there have been some tweaks to the plan related to the regulatory reviews from both the Department of Health and Department of Transportation. We made some, we got smarter as we go through this, and so we keep making minor modifications to our water and sewer to make it not only more cost effective, but also to more flexible in the future as we recognize that some of the programs, some of the buildings may continue to change. We want to move the water and sewer and drainage kind of out of the way of future development. So those again require health department review, and we've gotten comments back and forth with the health department. So those tweaks are really incorporated in the plans that you have before you in the engineering department is certainly reviewing. They've also been working a lot with the Department of Transportation and everything within the right-of-way. We've gone back and forth with DOT a number of times, and we're pretty much near the end of the process there. And so the plans submitted show they're not quite caught up with we had made one more recent submission to the Department of Transportation, so there'll be some further changes within the right-of-way there. But for the most part, this planimetrically is what the Department of Transportation has asked for. They've cut back on some of what the on-street parking that we really wanted. They've cut that back, limited us to 8 on-street parking spaces within the right-of-way. They've required that the sidewalk be in the right-of-way, and they've pushed the landscaping and the lighting outside the edge of the right-of-way. So we still have all the elements that we've always talked about. We've still got parking, still got sidewalks, still got lighting, still got landscaping. Kind of just the relative relationship of those fixtures has moved a little bit. And then, so those are reflected on the plan here. Certainly the lighting and landscaping as it appears on the site plan for your review is reflective of what the Department of Transportation has wanted. And then kind of the third category of changes that we've done here is we took another look at some of the aesthetics, particularly with the lighting and landscaping. We changed some of the street trees that were proposed just based on, we want to plant this summer and fall, so we wanted to make sure we had the trees were available, we could get them, they were hardy, and going to be the right trees for the site. I looked at variegation of color based on time of year, when the fall colors arrive, when the spring colors arrive. So we've done kind of that more in-depth analysis of the available trees. And then we also took another look at the lighting. And I'll say the first time we went to the lighting, we were looking a lot at the photometrics and not looking a lot at where the poles were. And so what happened is that they weren't paired walking down the street. And so you see the lights on when the lights are on. When the lights aren't on, you see poles all over the place. And so we went back and looked at both the street trees and the lighting, and looked to get more of a pattern of those features on the streets. So and particularly along the 44 corridor, we've really marched the lights and the trees in succession down the street to give it that feel of arrival at a town center. And along the commercial corridor, give it the feel of a commercial corridor. In the residential street, give it the feel of the residential street. And so that's the kind of the work that we've done with the placement of those lights. Again, being careful with the lighting, but making sure that we were also very careful with the placement of the poles. So we really kind of have that regularity of trees, and we've got LA elms proposed across the frontage here. We think again it's going to give a great sense to the 44 corridor as you go down. So those kind of I guess summarizes the three areas of changes that we've presented to you for comment. So thanks.
All right, thank you. Do you know why suddenly all these detailed changes with DOT? Is a different person involved, or because they had approved the plan previously?
Boy, is there a different person involved? Yes, every week.
Some of the things that you described changing sounded bad for the
some of it's been kind of over time, and we've just, because they've changed, we just now kind of caught up these plans all at once. I mean, these plans, some have changed incrementally over the last 8 or 9 months. But we have had changes in reviewers there. The initial reviewer, Adam, and I can't remember Adam's last name with the DOT, but he left, and so we had a new reviewer in. And I'll say DOT is not a fan of on-street parking here, and that's a change in policy there. They recognize that earlier on that they accepted it as a department, but they aren't a fan at all. They've pushed back on it, and we have as well, because we think it's important to the town center. We think it's what's consistent with the town's vision, as recognized in both the comp plan and the zoning to have on-street parking, and so they've begrudgingly accepted it, but it's not easy. So that's part of it. And then just 2 weeks ago, our detailed reviewer switched. And so we have, and I think you got a comment letter 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think that some of those comments were just from not having been familiar with some of the project from day one. And so our traffic engineers have continued to meet with the department and to respond to some of those to get some institutional memory back into where we've been with the department. So.
Have you ever, I know we talked early on in the project, have you ever approached them about, lowering the speed limit through this section, and that would allow for more on-street parking and such?
Yes.
That was an idea for this being a village center.
We agree, and we actually would like your support in that. I don't, to be completely frank, I don't want to push that with the Department of Transportation right now because we'd like to get our permit finalized, then I would, to the extent the town is supportive of that, we'd ask you to help in enlisting DOT's change of position because. And this is their policy. They want to move traffic along the main line as quickly and safely as they can. And there's a time and place for that, is my position, but there's also a time and place for traffic calming. And this is one of those, and we think reducing the speed limit would be great towards that. So
I mean, you have turn lanes, left turn lanes and such in and out of things that help keep traffic moving, and it is a village center, so we'll see if anybody has any additional comments.
Jeff, at this point, would it be of any value? I mean, maybe you don't want to engage in the debate anymore about the number of on-street parking spaces with DOT, but would it be of value for us to reach out to them again with you to restate,
Hate to build it one way and
right.
then we lower the speed limit later and could be different.
Right. So I think it's a great two things. I think it's a great conversation to have in at the same time as we talk about reducing speed limit. I think those two can go hand in hand because I think the Department of Transportation has linked those two items in their review comments about on-street parking and speed. And so I think it would be a great conversation to have. Again, not today, but in 2 or 3 months. And so. The second part of that as well, we're going to build something that can't have more on-street parking. It's hard to tell, but if you look at the plans, there's more available width and curb line to have more on-street parking than the 8 that's allowed. There are some striping regimes that the DOT has asked for that have really kind of spread out the number of parking spaces. So it'd be pretty easy to modify the really just pavement markings and get more parking on there. So in looking ahead, we wanted to not build something that would have to come back out if we wanted to add more parking.
Okay, as long as you're keeping that in mind, that you don't put concrete down in the wrong place.
Great.
All right, thanks. Let's go to Eric.
Sure. Yeah, we're supportive of the application at this point, as discussed, as presented in the letter to the planning board. The just redistribution of uses has a net effect of 0 on retail and an overall gross square footage reduction of about 150 square feet in the non-business, non-retail portion. So we'll require an amended density covenant, as it had with the previous site plan change, but overall a negligible effect on the overall use for the site.
Could I also just want to check one thing, and I just noticed before in your comments that it says, and incorrectly so, that some of the lots were transferred to new owners. They weren't really. The lots were transferred to separate LLCs. I don't want you to think the ownership has really changed here, but there are different LLCs created for some of these parcels for financing purposes. So I don't want you to think that it's approved and we've now sold them off and aren't involved. So I just so for clarity that yes, there are new LLCs, there are new ownership entities, but it's the same people. That's why Eric and I are still here. Right?
Yep.
So, okay.
Thanks for that clarification. There was a technical change in the delineation of the site. on the east side of Route 44, and Jeff's agreed to make that correction. It included a little extra, the lines are drawn to make it include more land than it probably should. That will be corrected. Jeff, we'd asked that the recent changes for construction phase fire access be included on the phasing plans. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, the landscaping, lighting, we found, I think Jeff spoke to that already. The one other thing I'll mention for the board is, assuming you get into architectural review, there were some conditions on the letter of resolution between New York State and MHTC Development about including certain elements in the mail building. So I would ask Jeff, when you get to that point tonight, if you could just address that for the board.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're recommending that the board find that it's consistent with the previous findings and grant approval for the amended site plan.
All right, thanks, Eric. Anything from engineering, Don, on this?
I have two questions for Jeff. I'm wondering, we noticed a change in a drainage pipe size. Did you do that intentionally?
Basically,
Yes.
as the DOT plans have moved forward, we've been able to optimize our site drainage design to work with the DOT drainage. So we're able to get a better slope on the pipe to be able to decrease that pipe diameter.
Okay, so we'd be looking for, an updated drainage
We can provide the
report.
supporting calculations,
Okay.
yes.
Second question is, whose idea was it to put a handicap parking space out on 44? Is that a traffic calming measure, or?
Sound good either.
It is, it's DOT driven, and they're, to DOT's defense, they have had to comply with federal requirements as well, and so there is evidently a requirement that where there's on-street parking, they have to have at least one handicap space. So there's one on, and then one on each side of the road. So you'll see two handicap parking spaces within the planning, within the proposed. One of the things that has that we've worked with is how the relationship between those parking spaces and the lanes actually work to make sure that it's easy and safe to get out of cars and then migrate into the end of the site. Not only for someone who's handicapped, but also just anybody else parking there. So the lane width was proposed as at 15 feet with a 4-foot shoulder, or 12 feet, a minimum of 12 feet with a 4-foot shoulder, 15 feet and 8 foot of parking where we have parking. That's still the case, but what's happened to the 15-foot lane is that we have now a 2-foot wide white stripe on the edge of the parking space next to the parking. So you still have the 8-foot parking, 2-foot white line as a delineator to keep the cars kind of away from the edge of the actual parking. Got the same lane width there for safety purposes, the same width there available for bike traffic, but it really kind of moves the cars away from the car doors, and so that was the plan that we've worked with DOT to make sure that all really does work. And I think also the downside of a 15-foot lane is people feel they can drive faster because the lane's wider, so that 13-foot does in fact add to the traffic calming as well. So it all kind of works together and still provides the same amount of pavement width for the various modes of traffic through the area.
You just have to be careful. People tend to drive at over 50 miles an hour through there, even though it's posted at 40. So
right, yes,
so
yeah.
That's it.
All right, thanks, Don. At this time, I'd like to make I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to open the public hearing. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I see we have one person signed up on the public hearing to speak. Breck Martin.
Yeah, hi, I'm Breck Martin, 15 Darrow Place, and I was away during the months of January and February in Florida, so I didn't get a chance to attend any meetings, but I didn't see anything significant happening. But I did write a letter to the town board before I left in December, and I wanted to take the opportunity now to read that, because didn't get any kind of response. I didn't see it published or anything else. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the town Poughkeepsie Planning Board regarding Eastdale Village, McDonald Heights Town Center. I would strongly suggest the board consider the results of the December 13th meeting in 2018 and questions raised by both the public speakers as well as the board members before granting any more permission for Phase 2. My observations of the issues addressed but not resolved on December 13th can probably be best summarized in a question and answer format. And again, these are my observations and my observations only. But question 1, the question was raised, why did the plans include non-approved extra square footage in the forms of a bandstand and property leasing office? The answer I got was, oh, we thought you wouldn't notice. Question number 2, why was a single building replaced with a non-approved 6-cottage substitution? The answer was the same. We thought you wouldn't notice. Question number 3, why was a green space flanking the main entry moved to another non-approved location? Same answer. We thought you wouldn't notice. 4, question, why was the outdoor lighting changed with non-approved parking area lights? Same answer. We thought you wouldn't notice. Question 5, why is there a 24-hour continuous non-approved pumping creating neighborhood disturbance going on? Answer, we thought the neighbors wouldn't notice. And number 6, why were roofing crews working on Sundays creating neighborhood disturbance? Answer, we thought the neighbors wouldn't notice. Well, please let the record show that many people do notice, including, but not limited to, the neighbors and hopefully the town planning board. If the developers choose to ignore and/or to proceed with non-approved construction modifications and additions, I suggest that the board not approve or at least postpone any further development until all conditions set forth in Phase 1 and all existing town regulations are adhered to. That was my letter. And since then, I have one other thing that I've noticed, and that upon my return, on the south end of the field, where the vernal pool is, has been there for the 40 years that I've been living there, there is a very active population of eastern box turtles there that are a breeding population. I'm not sure, they took down all the trees and a lot of the brush surrounding that vernal pool. Well, today is the first full day of spring. I don't know if the turtles have finished their hibernating yet, but they certainly will be coming out shortly. And it's the mating season, so spring is in the air, so I'm just hoping that there won't be any construction activities over there so that the eastern box turtles could continue to do what they've been doing for many, many millennia. Thank you.
Can you just say where exactly that is on the site?
It's on what I would call the southern end. It's where the old graveling pit was years and years ago.
So not where the current construction is happening necessarily?
No, but they did remove all the trees. So surrounding that vernal pool or bog area, whatever you want to call it. So again, I know there's a very active population of eastern box turtles out there, so I'm hoping they'll be able to come out of hibernation and do their thing.
All right, thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Can we get a copy of the letter by any chance? Thank you very much. Oh, we have it? Oh, all right, another copy. Thank you.
And I do believe at the last meeting, you had stated you were trying to avoid the Sunday work and the pumping issue has been resolved, or you got quieter pumps at that point?
Yes, the pumping issue is under control. I believe all of the changes we proposed to the board, we proposed to you before we actually implemented any of those changes. It wasn't a question of being noticed. We think we did come to you and ask for approval before we proceeded. Yes, we have again been staying on top of the issue of
making sure the construction is within the time allowed by the noise ordinance in the town, so.
Yeah, just want to make sure you're keeping the neighbors in mind, as I know things are going up fast with the good winter weather, so that'll help shorten the overall construction of the project as well. Is there anyone else wish to comment on this application? Seeing none, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Go around the board at this time. Start with Rocco today. Comments?
Nothing new at this time.
His
Thanks.
amendments. And Nicole?
No, nothing new. Thank you.
Ben?
Nope.
And Peter?
Just two things. One, on the architectural renderings, I'd just like you to ask the architect for me. You have a mother pushing a baby carriage across the sidewalk. I'm wondering if that's something that he learned in architecture school too. The other thing is the elms that you're planting. Do you have experience with them? Do you have a history with that variety?
We've been working with Rich Dingy Landscaping, and these were his recommendation for this application. He thought they would be the hardiest, best-looking tree along this stretch. So I defer to he and his 40 years of landscaping
As
experience.
long as
on that.
they're disease and insect resistant.
Right. Yeah, some elms I know varieties are, can be problematic, and I think that was part of his. solution, so.
The other thing is, we'd asked you to provide the density allocate, which you have done.
Yes.
And it looks great. Did a nice job.
Thank you.
I've exhorted, and it looks like as long as you don't hit the wrong number on the calculator, we're fine. But it's a great format. I think it's pretty easy to follow.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I have one request on, I'm sorry, if you're.
Yeah, I was just going to say, most of my comments we already dealt with, like the speed limit and the DOT issues. I'd like to just note that DOT was also instrumental in forcing you to eliminate your boulevard, which is why you wound up getting rid of your grass area there and moving it further back on the site. Unfortunately, it was another DOT-driven thing.
Yes, I'm sorry, the mail leasing building and the cottages, particularly the D1 cottage, which has our utility hub as a closet in the back. Both of those have been on previously approved site plans, and there was a minor increase in size for the mail leasing building that increased by 150 square feet, I think the number was. My request is that we can submit and obtain a building permit on those two buildings prior to this plan being signed, assuming we grant architectural review, because again, those were on a prior approved plan. This plan's gonna go back to the health department and probably take 90 days there, but we'd like to get those two buildings under construction because they are instrumental to the opening of the whole building. Again, because they were on a prior approved plan, I was hoping that wouldn't get caught up and not issuing a building permit until this particular plan is signed. So if my request is clear.
I think we could do that, the only, as long as are the plans that go to the building department going to be consistent with the later site plan, so it doesn't result in an inconsistency?
There's a minor change. I think it's like 150 square feet in the or so in the footprint of the mail building. So yes, they are the same. And really, from an engineering perspective, if this is just a service connection, it's not the health department doesn't typically look at the lateral to the building.
What was the second building, the mail building, and which was the other?
One of the cottages.
D1.
D4?
D1.
D1.
Right there, and
That's 350 square feet.
Oh, it's 350. I'm sorry, not 150. Thank you. there's a closet in the back of this building that's about 10 by 5 that is going to hold all of the infrastructure related to our fire alarms and security and other electronics on site. And so that building is kind of a termination point for a lot of what's happening with throughout the site. And so that's why that building becomes kind of critical to the overall structure. But that building hasn't changed in square footage since the last approval.
I see no problem with that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Everybody else, any more comments? Let's go for a...
I move that the planning board find the action contemplated by the Eastdale Village third amended site plans revised through February 25th, 2019, and by correspondence and attachments received February 26, 2019, is consistent with seeker findings statement, the McDonald Heights Town Center as adapted March 15, 2018, and I move that the planning board grant conditional amended site plan approval for the Eastdale Village third amended site plan subject to the following. Respond to the comments of all reviewing departments and agencies, said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, including but not limited to 1 through 10. No, I'm sorry, 1 through 10D.
Second.
Moved and seconded, grant conditional. Call to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And I...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, if possible,
Architectural?
like architectural review for the two buildings. Right. Introduce again to Giovanni Palladino from our office. Which one do you want first? Let's do the center.
No, you know what, I'm going to just do it one at a time, if you don't mind. Thank you.
While he's setting up, I would, again, the two things that were related to the cultural review, cultural resources review by the state for this building, one was to incorporate some of the details from the old barn that were there, and Giovanni can talk about those. The second was to complete our, actually there were three things. The second was to complete our historic architecture building survey. That report has been completed and a copy has been sent up to the state, and they'll put that on the CRIS website, and a copy of that report has been sent to the Dutchess County Historical Society, which again describes the buildings on the site. And I have the receipts of those buildings having been or those reports having been sent. And then the third thing that'll happen again on the inside of this building is that there need to be a panel created with some photos describing the site prior to construction, and that'll go up again after the building is constructed. But that's kind of the third piece of the mitigation that the state asked for. So,
hello, everyone again. The inspiration for the mail leasing building was the old barn that was taken down, so it matches almost identically as far as massing and scale. Some of the elements that were taken off the old barn as far as aesthetics is the old barreled windows here at the top, the barn doors that were at the gable. We've actually salvaged all the old barn hardware, and we're going to incorporate some of that where you see these faux barn doors. So we're incorporating a lot of that. Some of the other pieces that we're adding is we're actually going to be using an old rough sawn pine, which was on the original barn right here. As you can see, I brought in a sample for everybody if they want to see it. And then we're going to try to stain the building to try to match the old barn that was there. Just give you a better view here of what we're looking at. So when you look at these elements here, these gables, these brackets up top, the upper windows with the trim, we've salvaged a lot of the trim. We can't actually use it, so we're going to try to replicate it as best as we can. Again, the rough sawn pine lap siding. The roof will be what we call a 5V galvanized metal roof, which is similar to what was there already. I also brought here a sample here for anybody that wants to look at it. I don't know if it's going to fit in a folder. And just in this little piece here in the front, which is really where the entrance is, this is the actual mail's building. The building is actually split in half. As we started doing our research, we found out that the mail portion of it was actually too small because of the amount of packages that people are getting today. So we're going to an automated package system, a locker system. So there's 7 lockers, and that's why it required quite a bit more space than we had originally anticipated. And then our leasing office is over on the other side. I don't know what else there was here.
So is the porch that I'm seeing with the overhang there facing?
Right here, that's the front, that's the actual front.
That's facing the green lawn area.
Right, this part here is on the back, facing the green. This would actually be facing the medical office building and the cottages.
Got it.
And then so that you have one entry here for the mail leasing, mail center, and this other entrance back here for the actual leasing office. Might be able to see it better here in this black and white. Isometric drawings here.
Handling packages has become a major issue. I mean, you might notice at your own house, but just imagine that at a center like this, having to have that space has really become quite an issue over the last couple of years, and really has changed the way a lot of multifamily places have had to both staff and provide space for packaging.
Basically, a little bit more than a third of the square footage now is dedicated to just receiving packages.
Yeah, a lot of online ordering. Do you have a space for the drone to land when it's delivering the packages? Set aside that.
Make sure you have a flat roof. No.
And now they're delivering 7 days a week, so that has to be accessible. In the package system, we actually just signed the agreement today. It's pretty cool.
Okay,
Pretty
great.
fun.
Good that you're thinking ahead to those things for the residences.
Yep. Any questions on the building itself, or?
Will there be entrances on the back as well for residents of, who live on that side of the building?
There's an entrance here into the mail center. The mail building actually has an entrance off the green and off the front, so there's 2 entrances.
There is 2, right? That's what I thought I saw, okay.
This door here is just a faux door.
How's the coloration of that building working with the surrounding buildings?
It's different because we're using a different product.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is we're going to try to match some of the old siding that was on the old barn. We want it to stand out. We want it to be iconic, so it's sort of our civil building, our civic building.
So you're staining that a little bit darker, that color over there, the taupe?
Yeah, we're going to do a wash.
Okay.
It's going to come pre-stained with a base, and then we're going to do a wash out in the field. And we're just going to have a painter sitting there with old samples of the old wood and try to match it as best as we can.
Okay, great. It'll be an interesting focal point.
The barrel windows?
The arch windows on the top?
Yeah. How did you resist the temptation to call them Palladian windows?
I don't know.
Out of respect to your ancestor? Palladian.
A Palladian, well, it's not really a Palladian window, but it's not the right. I think the word Palladian is overused.
Anyone else have any?
Blame Palladia.
Palladia.
No.
Any other architectural comments? And you said you have another building to present?
Yes, we do. Next building that we're presenting is the D1 cottage. It's the first cottage. Again, it's 500 square feet. The intent here is to have these really cute, small cottages that, somebody that maybe doesn't need 1,000 square feet, but this is where your ice cream stand could be, or somebody with a really cute boutique, or maybe that somebody sells soups and salads. And something, these retail tenants would be, are really with an understanding of having and helping the green be activated, because we see a lot of people and families being there. So it's services or food that would, support that type of use. So this is the first building. The back here, I don't know if you can see the front elevation. Front elevation, is it easier for me to show you in color instead of black and white? Would that be easier?
Yeah, I think so. I assume if you're thinking food, there's grease traps and appropriate things being done for that.
Yep. They're not all going to look the same. I just had the renderer post all 4 so that you can get a sense of scale. This is actually true scale to the green and how close they are. But this is the actual building that we're coming in for today, which is the D1 building here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there'll be some shake. They're done with double hung windows. They actually the front elevation actually wraps around both sides between the alley here, as you can see. All three sides have glass. The rear has a single door for that closet. We're going to handle the overhangs not with something hard, but with an old-fashioned type of awning so that could be changed regularly depending on who the tenant is, actually add some color to the cottage. But mostly it's the same hardy siding, lap siding, maybe a little shake up here. And that's really all. I mean, there's not a lot about a little 500 square foot building. We're hoping that we can get a little bit of permission to, if we were to, in the future, build these other 3 buildings, when we do, I'd like to have that ability to actually make changes in the field so that it feels a little bit more organic, so that it really comes across as it's been done by different hands as opposed to by the same architect, repeating 5 times. And, we wanted to give it a little bit of character. I mean, the inspiration for this, I don't know if you've ever been up to Maine, but some of the old lobster shacks, that kind of loose country feel.
And these are the same materials, the hardy and the shingles are the same as in the buildings?
All the other buildings,
All the other buildings, right? So it's the same material?
That cementatious siding.
Similar, picking from that color palette you presented last time on other buildings.
Can't see it from here, but is there a location shown for where the sign would go? And
we're looking to put the sign up here in the gable.
Okay.
And on this particular building, because it's also facing the other residential buildings, it's on a corner.
Yeah.
There's opportunity to put a little signage right here where the sidewalk comes across.
This really reflects, I think, the thinking behind the town center, concept. My question is, do you think you'll have a tenant for these buildings? I mean, have you?
Actually, we do. We have a little bit of a list of tenants that are very interested.
Really?
We have somebody that's interested in doing like an ice cream gelato place in the summer, but then they would convert to like hot foods in the winter. So we're talking to someone like that. There's another person that we're talking to that does candies. Something that would really attract the kids from the neighborhood, ride their bikes over, get some candy.
Well, that's terrific. Are you going to build before they're rented, or are you going to pre-build?
These cottages here, the intent is to build them first because I think we need to have that green complete so that people understand it.
Uh-huh.
As much as, the renderings are beautiful, there's some difficulty in trying to get people to understand what we're trying to create. I think actually completing that square is going to become very critical because we want that green complete and done so that we could start using it for these rituals and these events that we want to have done.
Right. That'd be terrific.
All right, thanks. Anybody have any comments on architecture?
No, I'm good.
I move we accept architecture as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. A call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Good luck with your continued progress out there. And,
Thank you very much.
the weather's picking up in your favor, too.
It is, right.
Except for today, perhaps, and tomorrow.
pass that down again.
We should have made a nice hat.
No, the boards. We could just, the board, we don't have a, just the display boards.
You want them?
We don't have any copy of it except for what's in your hand.
Okay, we can leave the boards here.
All right, thank you. Next up, Raymond Avenue property redevelopment has involved the agency for seeker review, recommendations to the town board on zoning text amendment and site plan public hearing regarding revised applications for a proposed town zoning amendment to allow a new anchor project use designation and a proposed site plan for a mixed-use project of 196 apartments and 3,200 square foot clubhouse, approximately 20,000 square foot commercial space, 110 room hotel, an open area including outdoor seating, and 335 parking spaces. Proposed site redevelopment involves replacement of the existing school building with a 5-story hotel and construction of 3 two-story buildings on the ground floor, commercial and residential apartments above, 2 7-story residential buildings with first-floor garages, a clubhouse with offices and amenities, surface parking and access from Raymond Avenue and by easement from Fulton Avenue. 25 and 31 Raymond Avenue, zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center District, 6.38 acres and .43 acres respectively. It's an unlisted action. The town board as lead agency, Pause Management, Inc., contract vendee, and Arlington Grade School and Arlington Central School District owners. I move that we adjourn the public hearing to April 18th, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
One
pass-
abstain.
And, motion passes 4-0.
I think it's actually 3.
Ben stepped out.
Ben stepped out.
Oops. And we can't pass.
So correct the count?
Well, you might just want to wait till Ben comes
Yes.
back in,
Oh,
because
right.
it's not a quorum.
That's not a quorum if we,
So we can hold that motion and redo it when Ben comes back in.
Yep. In the meantime, I'd like to just, say that the next portion of the meeting will be the public comment portion, intended to give the public an opportunity to comment on those projects for which the public hearing will not be held. For those members of the public wishing to speak concerning Central Hudson Knapp's Corner Substation, please know that tonight's meeting is not a public hearing, and that a public hearing will be held in the future at a date and time that is publicized. In order for your comments to be part of the record, they will need to be made during the public hearing or submitted in writing to the board. And to that end, we ask you to reserve your comments or submit them to the board in writing. No decisions on this project will be made at this meeting tonight. And if you wish to speak about the project tonight, we ask you to keep your comments brief to avoid saying what has been said previously. The board will listen to your comments made, but will not respond to questions or comments. So I move that we allow public comment on any other agenda items tonight and limit the comments to no more than 3 minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded for public comments. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Before we do that, we have to go back to one comment, Ben. One motion. I move that we adjourn the public hearing for the Raymond Avenue School project to April 18th, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. All right. Does anyone wish to comment on any items on tonight's agenda? Please come forward. There's no one on the list.
Can I sit at the adult table or I have to stand?
Sure, come on down. There's no one here yet, so.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Phil DeRasmo, and for the past 18 years, I've lived at 2 Ronnie Lane in the town of Poughkeepsie. Before that, I lived in Hopewell and actually grew up in the village of Wappingers Falls. I've been a resident of Dutchess County for 51 years, moving here from the Bronx when I was 2 years old. The reason why I just say that is because I'm not a recent urbanite. I've been up here quite a long time and have been used to this type of living. Although I wasn't able to attend the board meeting back in September, I was able to view it online afterwards, and I actually thank the town for having that service made available to the public and to your constituents. I think it's an excellent way to get caught up if you weren't able to actually attend the meeting. And given the camera angle, sometimes you can really appreciate people's facial gestures and body language during the discussions. With regards to the recent proposal from Central Hudson, which contains minimal revisions to its original plan to replace and move one of the existing substations, I feel the proposed location is simply still too close to the existing residential neighborhood of Country Club Estates, and the encroachment takes away from the appeal, privacy, and safety of a number of the homes on the southernmost border of the neighborhood. It is also my understanding that this is not the oldest substation on the property, and that the oldest substation that feeds Tilcom will still be remaining. The new proposed location will be directly in back of my property, and even a row of non-indigenous trees to the area is not enough to warrant the proximity. You might as well put up a fence, which again does nothing to address the sounding electrical equipment and trucks staging in the area, height visibility, EMF, and potential safety issues with regard to fire impingement, if God forbid it catches on fire, which a number of Central Hudson substations have done over the years. The substation will now truly be a part of the neighborhood, and that much closer to the existing elementary school, Oak Grove School. The question one has to ask is, why would Central Hudson propose to move its new substation to the most northwestern edge of its property, and in such close proximity to the existing residential community? I believe it's because it's the cheapest and quickest to build alternative, as absent where the two substations currently reside, the land directly in back of my home is the flattest part of the property. They said themselves in the proposal that they did not want to have to do a lot of cut and fill. The area was at one time a spring, and as such, there is a good deal of ridges, ravines, and bedrock. 5 years ago, Central Hudson was looking to move the large substation 90 degrees and a little north from its present location. Now, all of a sudden, this is not doable. As you're all probably aware, everything is doable with time and money. And I know no one on this board cares about the bottom line of Central Hudson's Canadian parent, Fortis, which is a $53 billion company doing $8.4 billion in revenue and bringing $1 billion to the bottom line in net income in 2018.
Yeah, the 3-minute timer went off, so just curious if you had to finish up a little bit more.
Oh, okay. The proposal offer to the town appears that many facts in moving. The proposal offer to the town has what appears to list many facts in moving electricity, opinions from third-party vendors, as well as opinions in general. There is no doubt in this room that Central Hudson is the subject matter expert in moving and handling electricity, and that's what they do day to day. But in order to fact-check the reasons why Central Hudson is saying the substation can only be built where it's proposed, I would hope that the town commissions an electrical engineer that has no affiliation with Central Hudson, nor will it have plans to affiliate itself with Central Hudson in the future. I think this is imperative given some of the answers that were given to the neighbors' questions from Central Hudson reps and the few questions that were answered. I would conclude that despite a very elaborate proposal, it's simply a matter of common sense not to have a substation so close to a residential neighborhood. I thank the board for their time, and I hope a better compromise can be reached.
All right, thanks for your comments.
Do you want to submit the written comments to us, or do you want to do that at another time?
I could do that another time. I have a lot of notes.
That's fine, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, as I said, it's not a public hearing tonight, so to get them on the record, they need to be submitted at that time. So we'll get them all into the file.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make comments tonight?
Hi, I'm Joseph Apola. I live at 21 Kerr Road. I also own 19 Kerr Road. I had a chance to see their new plans. Not only did they not come back with an alternative plan, as you guys stated to them last time, they moved it even closer to the house, and my property's not even in any of their plans. I'm dead across from it. They're proposing to put a second driveway in directly in front of my house. They were asked to take pictures from our properties, which I know they did not. I took some pictures, if I could hand them out. I know it's supposed to be submitted, so maybe I'll just submit it for you, but they didn't come back with any alternative plan. You guys asked them at the end of last time, what if there is a fire? Does everybody go without power? They said, no, we have means to control it elsewhere. Why can't they do that and build next to it and turn it back on? I mean, I have, little children. I work a lot. Coming here, just like anybody else, is kind of a pain. All this is because they want to come to the north part of the property. If they would just go close to it, the whole neighborhood would say nothing. It almost makes no sense to come here and go over and over them, spend money on lawyers and new blueprints. They have the means to do it. So it makes no sense. Anyway, so like I said, I'm hoping that you guys are fact-checking them, because everything they're doing so far is different than when last time we came in here. It almost, to have a driveway for a staging section directly in front of my house, we've asked, the board to come out and view it, which hasn't, technically been done yet. It's woods, and from my window, I'm gonna completely see trucks sitting there for a storm. I don't know if anybody's ever been in Country Estates. It's a really quiet place. So, we're hoping that the town's on our side.
Yep, thanks for your comments. Legal has advised us we need to advertise for the site visit, so we'll be doing that.
All right.
Anyone else?
I guess I'll stand.
Yep.
I live right around the corner. I'm at 27 Spring Road. I'm Paul Gazza. We've been there about 8 years, my wife and our 2 kids. And we have about 2.8 acres of property. We're up on top of the hill in the middle of the property. The back of our property is where we reside and have our privacy. And up the hill is where they're planning on building that, which we obviously are out there all the time. And that's what we're going to be staring at, hearing, and all our concerns is the same concerns as everyone else. And, major factors, if you look into other neighborhoods where they end up building these substations, they do take away from the property's value and curb appeal, and possibly, like, if we were planning on moving ever, a lot of people probably wouldn't even buy the house for that factor. I know if it was there, we personally would not have purchased the house that we bought. And, it's something to really take into consideration, especially being much higher at level versus the station being below everyone. Mm-hmm. Now it's up higher, and with that being up higher, and you get into EMF and all the other stuff with the particles and everything in the air, whether or not they put barriers, we're still going to see stuff, and it's still a safety. So, and it's a safety hazard, and I'm hoping that they take into consideration, just like Joe said, and possibly look into alternatives, because this is just a big inconvenience. Just to even think, like, if they build this, that we're actually looking like to move. And we wouldn't want to do that. Oak Grove's around the corner, the schools are all nearby, everything's by, that's why we moved there. And, we're not planning on having this affect our lives, and, now it's just been constant stress.
Are you the stone house or the
I got the stone house that was built in 1922. When we had purchased it, we were on the front page of the Poughkeepsie Journal. I don't know if you want to look that article up. Had to do with the short sales, and we were looking for somewhere to live, somewhere with privacy and woods and wildlife. And my wife and kids are big on the Girl Scouts. She's a troop leader. They're big on rescuing cats. There's a lot of feral cats around there that they trap, they spay, they release, they take care of them. We have a lot of foxes and wildlife nearby. I have tons of pictures that I'm going to submit with that. And there's fox dens up there, because I've hiked the property and saw a lot of the stuff, and we see a lot of foxes and everything. And, that's another factor in my wife and kids' minds, is just, the wildlife that they're disturbing, that we see every day. That's why we bought this house. We moved up from Queens because we wanted something along those lines of being next to Route 9, but also that privacy, and not having a power substation like in our backyard. Our pool's right there. The swing set's there, everything's right there. When we're back there, that's all we're going to be seeing. And it's we have big families that come and visit, and we do a lot of entertaining, and that's just going to be a big factor. So, but anyway, thank you for your time.
And thanks for your comments. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is George Gallagher, 2 Debbie Court, next to the DeRosmos. I submitted a couple pictures for you guys to take a look at. Just to give you a visual exactly what we would be looking at from our backyards if that thing goes over to our backyard. So the one picture with the wooded area, you'll see a little yellow tarp hanging on a line. That would be the distance from my backyard to where it would start. And then you'll see the other picture of the other picture of the existing substation now is the exact same footage that it would be from my backyard. So that's how it would look to me from my backyard, the size of the substation. So I just wanted to give you a visual, because you guys haven't been out to look at the property, so this might give you a little better visual of what the people on Debbie Court will be looking at in Ronnie Lane from their backyards.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Can I pass these pictures to you guys?
Sure, we could take a look at them as well.
I just want to give it to you. They're not the greatest, but there's an arrow pointing to where the road is going to be. And
Yep.
like I said, I'm directly in front of it.
Yeah, I'm familiar
I'm
with
not
it.
on any of their plans.
Yeah, I had noticed that they have not included your property line on the other side because it was not.
Yeah,
It was not.
both times we've been here.
They typically put adjacent properties on the map, but this is across the
And I
street,
feel
so
like
it's.
my house views that more than almost every house. There is no trees. There's just a road and then it. There's only 2 sets of pictures. I just figured you could pass it.
All right, is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
These are like the same. I see. That's that and this one there.
On any other items on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I move that we resume the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, opposed? Seeing, motion passes 5-0. Move on with the agenda now. Central Hudson Naps Corner Substation Site Plan Review for a proposed new 115 69 13.8 kV rated substation, 19 Spring Road, zoned R 1.5A, single family residence, 1 acre district, 6.7 acres. It's an unlisted action, CHG&E Corporation owners.
Give me Carol.
I will. Get enough copies for all of us, actually. Spread them around, we need to have copies.
Good evening.
Welcome back.
Happy to be back. My name is Anthony Mirando. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader, and tonight I'm here on behalf of Central Hudson. Joined to my right,
I'm Greg Liberman with EDR.
Brian Demisco, Central Hudson. So as I just mentioned, we're happy to be back before the board to discuss and move forward with a review of Central Hudson's pending application to replace the Knapp's Corner substation, which as we know is located at the intersection of Spring and Kerr Roads. When we were back here in September, we received a number of comments from the board, as well as a subsequent letter memorializing those comments, and we reviewed those very closely. One of the board's primary requests was obviously to reconsider the proposed site and think about alternate ways to locate it even on the existing site. Again, we looked at those comments at length. We tried to reflect that in our recent submission back to the board. And we hope to take a few minutes tonight to just kind of walk through what we've done and have really a good dialogue. One of the keys in our efforts over the last few months was to try to make some changes that are consistent with the board's requests, while still acknowledging that we need to meet certain critical operational needs and mandates as a public utility. The board's comments led us to essentially develop an updated site plan, which we've now submitted back to the board. It reflects a modified location on the existing substation site, but again, while acknowledging what it needs to do as a public utility. And before reevaluating the existing site, we spent a lot of time looking at some alternate locations. That is a pretty extensive analysis on those parcels and some issues that come along with that. That's in a report that we submitted to the board. And we hope that was helpful. Tonight, we'd like to start by walking you through the modified location, some of the efforts in going into identifying it, some of the hurdles and obstacles into trying to get there. It's not as simple as simply moving it. There's a lot that comes with it. You could just think of Central Hudson with multiple departments that have to weigh in, and we have to work through all types of obstacles that come up as you work through different issues. As Brian will mention in a few minutes, and as you know from our last meeting, a substation is a connection point within a bigger network of electric utility infrastructure. So there's a lot of things that go into it. It's not like a gas station or something like that where it's independent of itself. While the project is independent, the overall connection to a bigger grid is critical to keep in mind. Two key objectives that we looked at when we went back and tried to come up with a modified location was creating a meaningful increase in the distance between adjoining residential properties and the substation fence line. And we hope that was reflected in what we've submitted. Another was to create meaningful space that isn't just creating distance, but creating distance that would allow us to accommodate not just the infrastructure that's needed, but strategically to be able to strategically place plantings in a way that we think would really, really create a nice screening. As we look through these issues, we had some maintenance issues to get through and some operational challenges. Brian's going to walk you through those in a second as well. Some things to consider is, as a connection point in an overall electric grid, there's other pieces of infrastructure on the property, transmission lines, distribution lines. So we had to work through how we could shift those in a way that wouldn't end up with a substation being constructed under energized lines. I think we could all agree that's something that we can't do. That was a critical issue. There's design standards that we have to meet that Brian will get into, sort of angles and things like that. But again, one of our key thing was to really take a close focus at strategic plantings, and in a way that we can balance that with maintaining the site in a way that doesn't present dangers or risks to the infrastructure, as you can probably imagine. Central Hudson is tasked with complying with certain state requirements for vegetative maintenance and keeping trees away from lines and other utility infrastructure. So tonight we're going to walk you through some of those details, and we're just looking forward to continuing the dialogue with you.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. First and foremost, I do want to say that we have exercised a lot of sensitivity to this plan, to this project. We have taken a lot of time and effort and resources to go back to the drawing board, if you will, and talk to a lot of different departments, as Anthony has alluded to. There are a lot of areas and a lot of staff who weigh in and provide comment, provide feedback, and provide recommendations. And oftentimes it results in multiple meetings with multiple departments and cross-checking and fact-checking and getting back with people and ensuring that we're all understanding that we're speaking the same language across departments. So it takes a long time to do that. As you know, we haven't been here since the September board meeting. And so we did not rush back. We really took our time to evaluate and plan and make sure that we could come back to you with something, what we believe to be substantive and real in terms of making an improvement based on what we spoke about in September. An important premise to this application is identifying the modified location that we're proposing and acknowledging that the primary objective of this critical project is to continue to appropriately deliver electric service to the community as a whole, for which the Knapp's Corners substation serves. As we previously discussed, Central Hudson must replace the existing outdated Knapp's Corners substation. We need to replace it with a modernized substation that will meet the primary objective, which again is to continue to appropriately deliver electric service to the community as a whole. As Anthony indicated, the Knapp's Corners substation, it's not a standalone substation. It's not like a generator that we might have at a home and takes fuel and it provides just some temporary power for a single home. The Knapp's Corners substation, like all of our electric substations, are tied together through a network of transmission lines. If you think of it like a spider web, and those lines are transmission lines, and within those lines are substations that talk to each other, if you will. They are interconnected, and they provide part of a very intricate web and weave that allows our Central Hudson system to be what it is today. No substation operates on its own. It's part of a very intricate operation. So as you can understand, it's not easy to replace a substation because it does have interconnectivity with other substations and other transmission lines. You've probably noticed that Knapp's Corners, as well as other substations like we have in the town of Poughkeepsie, Inwood Avenue, Spack and Kill, Manchester, and others throughout our system territory, are located within neighborhoods that they serve. They're nestled within neighborhoods that they serve, and they are located next to what we call T&D infrastructure, transmission and distribution line infrastructure that tie into those substations. It is its core. It's central to good engineering practice and design to have the substation and the T&D infrastructure closely knit together. That's what allows for the best operating design in terms of efficiency, reliability, and of course safety, keeping everything contained. It's very important. We've truly tried to balance Central Hudson's utility needs to provide safe, affordable, and reliable electric service for the community. Again, we've been away from this table for a number of months, and we've been working hard every day, nights and weekends, to come back to you with something that we feel is substantive. We've also wanted to address your comments in a very positive way. It's our sincere hope that as we go through our presentation tonight, that we've made that impact with you and all stakeholders for the Knapp's Corners substation. What I'd like to do is put the modified location of the plan up on the easel. Thank you very much, Greg. And talk a little bit about this. There are some other details that Greg Lieberman from EDR will discuss when I hand the baton over to him. But I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we made that we feel are significant, and what are some of the issues that we have to overcome. And so, what you're seeing here on this plan.
Can you take the portable mic with you? Just turn it on. It takes a few seconds to warm up.
Everybody tells me I talk too loud anyway. So.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
make sure we have it on the record.
Terrific. So what you're seeing here is a layout of the proposed substation footprint. And what we have done since the last time we have met is we looked at what are the constraints, what are the things that we need to be aware of so that if we are able to make a move, a change, a modification to the station, what do we need to overcome? Well, first and foremost, I'll say what we were able to accomplish with this. The original plan, when we met with you 6 months ago, had a natural buffer distance. The natural tree line and area that you see here was approximately 92 feet from the property line here in the north side to the clearing. So with this shift southwest that we've been able to perform, we're expanding that natural buffer line from 92 feet to approximately 145 feet. Okay, so we wanted to do as much as we could to expand that buffer. By the same token, the total distance from the property line to the fence line, the northern fence line of the substation, previously we were at 167 feet. As a result of the shift, which is about 53.5 feet, that we were able to shift that substation further south, we're able to increase that distance from 167 feet to 220 feet. Again, from the property line to the fence line. We were also able to shift a little bit to the west by about 13 feet, increasing the distance off of the property line from number 23 Spring Road from about 103 feet to about 116 feet. Again, Greg will talk about some other things there, but again, the main thing is we have a 53.5 foot shift to the south, and I'm going to just sit down and continue. In order to move the substation 53.5 feet south, we did have some operational challenges, design challenges that we needed to overcome. And what that did was, by moving it a little further south by 53.5 feet, we are moving truly from what we had as an optimal design location to what we call a less than optimal design location. Now, having said that, we are not sacrificing the safety, reliability, or future operation of the new substation. It means that we had to make some design modifications that weren't incorporated in the first plan, but we came back and understood that we could make some changes so that would allow us to move the substation again without affecting future reliability or safety or operation. One of the things that we had to consider was the fact that we have an active transmission line corridor running through the property. In order to make the new substation work, we had to understand how do we move temporarily a transmission line so that we can literally work under that line to build the new substation. And that was a critical concern for us. We had to, in our plans, understand what do we need to do to be able to make sure we have a safe environment, to move that station further south, and that was to be able to relocate temporarily a portion of a transmission line. So it puts us directly in conflict, if you will, with the corridor, whereas before we were not. Another example in the shift was the fact that the transmission line attachment angle for a transmission line on the south side of the substation. By design and by design parameters, we want that attachment angle coming into the substation to be as close to 0 degrees as possible, to have no shift, if you will, but to have a 0 degree angle. We were at our prior design, we were at about 3.5 degrees. The maximum design limitation that we can afford is 15 degrees shift for the angle of the transmission line. By moving the substation 53.5 feet south, that transmission line angle attachment changed from 3.5 degrees to about 14 degrees, or about 1 degree off of the maximum attachment angle parameter. That puts us up pretty close to the limit. Can't go any further than that. Moving it any further south would have resulted in non-compliance with these standards. We would have conflicts with design, construction, topographical, and operational constraints. We worked diligently to put the replacement station as far south of the residential properties on the north side as possible. We tried to exercise, again, as much sensitivity and care for the local community, and also recognizing what our requirement is, what our job is, to provide reliable, dependable, cost-effective electric service for the community that this substation serves. In fact, this substation has been in service since 1941, and it was expanded in 1953. It has gone through nearly 8 decades of upgrades and modifications to keep as current as possible with the requirements for electric service for this area. And you can quite imagine that in 1941, this area did not have nearly the kind of customer load. Didn't look nearly like it does today. And that's a very important point. In summary, after a comprehensive and careful analysis, we believe that the Knapp's Corners, the new design, we were able to meet our design parameters without interrupting electric service. It's a critical consideration that when we are putting a new substation in place, such as Knapp's Corners, we have to be able to keep the existing customer base online. We can't take the substation down. We have to be able to maintain service continuously for our customer base. And having this ability to build the new substation provides that. We look forward to continuing to review the proposal with the board. We, of course, look forward to your feedback, and we look forward to continued productive dialogue. And with that, I'd like to change over to Greg Liberman from EDR, who will continue the presentation.
And if it's okay, I'll stand because I'll be speaking to several plans here.
Just have to turn that on.
Good evening. My name is Greg Liberman. I'm a senior project manager with Environmental Design and Research. As Brian and Anthony alluded to, there's been extensive analysis at looking at this modified location to make sure it's compliant with various design and operational standards. And you can imagine for an electrical substation dealing with the integration of transmission infrastructure and distribution infrastructure creates some limitations with respect to site planning and layout and site layout. However, a site plan application was submitted in August of 2018 that demonstrated the optimal location for this facility, and it's been modified, as Brian alluded to here, in our recent site plan submittal. There were several key elements of that initial site plan application that still remain in this plan today. However, it's simply been modified to take into account a much more substantial space between the northern property line and the substation area. I'd like to take a few minutes and just walk through kind of the plan so that you can get a sense of where things are. This is Spring Road. This is Kerr Road. This is the fence line of the existing substation. This is the new modified location substation situated back 53.5 feet from where it was in the optimal location. The northern driveway that was discussed earlier is situated right here. This allows for several operational benefits. It allows for transformer delivery and equipment delivery into the substation, which is an important long-term operational aspect as well as a construction-related aspect. It also allows for access onto the existing transmission corridors, which is something that will need to be maintained. The southern access road is situated right here, goes into a gate on the southern end, and also includes a spur road down to the existing substation. The reason why the spur road is here is because the existing driveway situated very close to the intersection at Spring Road has been eliminated based on discussions with the town so that we have 2 curb cuts proposed. There are a couple other elements from the 2018 submittal that are still relative here. For instance, the advancements in design and going from a 1940 substation to a modern substation, there'll be lower profile equipment. There'll be improved acoustic dampening to dampen the sounds of the station transformers as described in the noise evaluation provided to the town, and there'll be a more efficient lighting scheme. And at this point, if it would be helpful, I think this is a good opportunity to just walk through, pardon this graphic. Right, you mind holding? Yeah. My apologies on the graphic, but I feel as if it might benefit everybody to have an understanding of what's inside the fence line. What are these things that we're talking about? This is a rendering from the August filing. This does not reflect the current location. It's simply here as a tool to talk through various components. This, you may recall from the August filing, is viewpoint 3 looking up from Kerr Road up at the driveway of the original layout. And I apologize for blocking view. So when we talk about the control building that's inside the fence line, it's a 13-foot tall prefabricated steel building, and that's where there'll be controls and switch gears and that kind of stuff inside the building. There'll be a man door, an overhead man light with downcast lighting, pretty straightforward, typical type of construction. When we talk about transformers, that are these pieces of equipment here on the internal. Those are the kind of the workhorses of these facilities. You can see them in here. When we talk about dead-end structures, that's right here. These are where the transmission lines come in and meet up with the substation. And then another term that you may have heard is lightning mast. These are these single poles, and they're situated along the corners of the substation to help deflect and spread from to prevent lightning strikes. So in context of what we're doing here, I think Anthony said earlier, in terms of it's a little bit different. It's not necessarily a brick and mortar facility. And so when we talk about maximum height of equipment of a lightning mast, for instance, we're talking about a single vertical point, of which we have 4. And it's from a context standpoint, from a visual standpoint, when viewed between even and leaf-off conditions, there's a natural screening and a natural kind of blending that occurs because of this type of development. And I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. Hopefully that's helpful. And if it would be helpful for the board in anticipation of an upcoming site plan, these things can be staked out by the surveyor to show precise location. So to help with the context of what this thing is and where it sits.
I was going to ask for some outline of the
Absolutely. I think we're already coordinating with the surveyor now to make sure that the fence line will be staked, the access roads will be staked, the lightning mast will be staked, so that you can kind of get a sense on where this thing sits.
And how high are those lightning rods?
The dead end structures are 55 foot. That's the tallest component within the fence line. So thank you for the clips. Another primary component of the current filing that is compliant with what was provided in the August filing is the gravel subsurface. This is the stormwater detention system that is within the fence line of the substation. I just want to take a few minutes to speak to this, as it's kind of an important detail. Central Hudson is proposing to use in what's called an alternative cross-section. It's essentially an open graded stone that the DEC has approved for use as a stormwater management practice at utility substations. It allows us to use the substrate that's below the substation of the open graded stone to provide water quality treatment and water quantity treatment. And this is a cross-section that was developed for substations. There was a third-party review by the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry. The DEC has approved this as an accepted practice per the New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual. And the benefit of this is it precludes the need for additional stormwater detention. In other words, if this was just pavement, we'd have to look elsewhere to provide a retention pond or bioretention facilities, which would result in additional tree clearing, additional earthwork. This way, we're allowed to preserve 145 feet or 150 plus feet of natural buffer and maintain our stormwater within the fence line. So we see that as a tremendous asset of this project. With respect to the existing substation, this will be decommissioned and much of the equipment removed once the new substation is constructed and energized. The existing fence line will remain, and two small components, as identified in the plan sets, will remain to facilitate the connectivity with existing transmission and distribution infrastructure. This area over here, closest to the intersection, you can see it for those of you who may know, it's kind of a tall rectangular grid. We commonly refer to that as buswork. Right. That will be removed. The gravel will remain and the fence line will remain for security purposes. And in times of storm recovery as needed, this area can be used as a central meeting spot or storage area to help facilitate storm recovery efforts. As Brian mentioned, the fence line in the optimal location was 165 feet away from the northern property line. Now with the shift, it's been increased to 220. And something that has occurred with that shift is the need for a retaining wall. Because as I think somebody else previously mentioned, it is ridgeline. There is topography out there. Mm-hmm. Now that it's being shifted further south, we have to deal with that. The surface of the substation needs to stay flat. So the application that was filed in February includes a retaining wall along the southwest corner of the substation. This is not an ideal situation from a civil engineering perspective, certainly not from a construction cost perspective. However, Central Hudson has taken this as an opportunity to actually make it longer than it needs to be, such that we can make this area higher and use it as a suitable planting medium to further screen the substation from Kerr Road. So we're trying to, as Anthony alluded to, trying to make these meaningful changes that result in actual screening benefits.
So how high would that retaining wall be
At its highest point here, it'll be roughly 8 feet. The grading is still underway, and then it will tie into grade and tie into grade.
Yep.
Correct. But by doing so, there's a ridge line like that. By running, we could stop the wall there and tie it into grade, but we run a little bit longer so that these trees will actually be popped up on a higher ground, give us a little bit more screening potential.
Okay, great. You mentioned that bus bar, infrastructure here, is there a similar thing going to be in the new substation, or?
It will be different than what's in the existing sub. I mean, there'll still be equipment, there'll still be transformers, there'll still be poles, and there'll still be height, but it won't be as extensive as the rectangular buswork at the existing substation.
Right. Today's technology for substation equipment is much more low profile. And you would not see the kinds of structure height that you see now with all that buswork in the existing substation.
Because that is a significant part of the view shed thing, but we want to understand what we're going to be seeing.
Understood. In something to note, the modified location as opposed to the optimal location, by shifting it down to the south, it also dropped it in elevation an additional 3 feet. So when looking at it from a view shed perspective, we're actually dropping the profile even further than what was submitted in the application. We'll just take one quick second here to talk through.
I just want to, if you might, sorry to interrupt, can you clarify, so where it's existing to where it is now? So you're talking about the 3 feet decrease, but from where it is existing to where it's going, what is that increase?
Sure. So the existing substation is set around elevation 170. The northern properties up here set around elevation 200. In the optimal location was set at 190. The modified location is set at 187. So the existing substation is 170. This will be set at 187. This is elevation 200. So it's across.
But I think it's also important to keep in mind that as you move up, so does the vegetation around
Sure.
it.
Yep. Nope. I just wanted to clarify because we're
peak.
speaking about optimal versus modified versus existing. I just want to make sure it's clear.
Right. And it's also, and I can let Greg give you the number, but it also as you travel south from by Debbie and Ronnie, it actually continues to decrease. So that's actually a higher point.
Yeah, it's from the high point is set up here, and it essentially goes down the entire way. And so that information has been provided in the supplemental visual report.
All right, thanks.
With respect to the landscaping, I just want to put into context, the enhanced buffer along the northern property line was from the optimal to modified is a 58% increase from 92 to 145 feet of existing mature vegetation to remain. In addition, the planting quantities have increased significantly from 64 plants to over 160 plants in this planting plan. The plants were selected to provide a range of, there's ornamental trees, there's evergreen trees, there's shrubs. It provides a mix. We've been able to kind of put them in strategic locations to further enhance the screening effect. We've provided them along the internal driveways to try to offset the view of what it looks like if you have that view up the driveway, which is a fleeting view as if, motorists are driving by. And a couple of big things I just want to point out. Of the 160 plants, 58 are evergreens that will grow in excess of 50 to 60 feet. So when viewed in a long-term perspective, they'll provide not only immediate screening because of the size of plants being installed, but over the long term, they'll provide significant screening, even during leaf-off conditions. But a few things to note with the planting plan. You can see here in green, there's been a very concerted effort along the northern property line to these are evergreen trees. There's also space to provide a shallow berm, and we're not talking earth-shattering, but there's an 18-inch berm at this location, which will do two things. It will enhance the height of the planted trees, and it will also provide a suitable planting base for the plants so that this can essentially become a living wall along the northern property line. In addition, for those that have been out there, there's an existing cleared corridor right here from a distribution line. After this is installed, that can come out, and we're proposing to fill that in with additional plants to further block views from this area of Kerr Road. This is the area I referred to with the retaining wall that's been added. There's a lot of plantings been added here also to offset the views from Kerr Road, and landscaping has been carried down Kerr, including where the driveway will be removed. So we went back from August to now and did provide a supplemental visual report. And one of the major components, if not the major component of that visual report, was looking at more intact, immediate views from the abutting residential areas to the north. These viewpoint locations, as shown on this map, indicate additional leaf-off photos taken from a 360-degree view around the substation, looking at the existing site to determine what the actual visibility is during leaf-off condition. And as indicated in the supplemental report, the view shed, i.e. the visibility of this site, is relatively minimal considering its placement, considering the existing structures, and considering the surrounding vegetation and the topography. That said, we updated the visual simulations and added You're good. This is an updated simulation from what we call Viewpoint 6. Some of you may know that Viewpoint 6 was provided in the original August filing during leaf-on conditions. We reran that simulation of the modified shifted location from the same spot on Kerr Road with leaf-off conditions to get a sense of what's happening out there. You see we added, these trees right here are these trees right here. You can see the trees carrying down. Those are these trees here. And what we're seeing, even during leaf-off conditions, the visibility is really minimal in terms of where the substation will be situated, because we've knocked the profile down, we've situated back, and we've taken advantage of those meaningful spots to provide landscaping and screening. I would also note that Central Hudson, as a public utility, is required to manage vegetation. Therefore, they would not typically propose this type of planting at their properties, but we're really trying to do everything we can to offset those views and be responsive to the comments that we've heard. But we believe that the strategic location of the plantings, the species selection, the commitment to the evergreen trees is really going to really enhance the screening and really minimize visual effects from the surrounding areas. It's also worth noting that site lighting is not anticipated to have an impact on nearby visibility for a variety of factors. The existing substation is lit at night. The proposed substation will not need to be lit at night. There will only be lighting that will be used for safety and security, and it will only be on in rare instances such as emergencies or nighttime maintenance or safety concerns. In those rare instances, as indicated by the photometrics provided to the town, that will have 0.0 foot candles at the residential property lines. So the lack of lighting, and when it is using, because it's more efficient lighting, the light spillage is not seem to be a concern given the photometrics. And lastly, to kind of pull this all together, given the shift, given the reduction of the profile, sitting at 3 feet lower than the optimal location, with the quantity of plants at the location of the plants, we think the visual report accurately represents what the proposal is and is significant in reducing visibility from the existing site, which is highly visible along Spring Road, and also from the optimal location that was provided. So overall, I think we've really tried to work very hard to address some of the concerns that were heard, and feel that the document that was provided in February, I think, kind of shows the effort that was provided.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. You have another one? Okay.
We've spoken enough.
You guys have
We'd like to listen.
Yeah, you guys have obviously put in a lot of homework over the last 5 to 6 months and addressed a lot of some of the issues that we looked at, that we had concerns of. Appreciate that you've looked at, even some of your other properties, and so this new report has got a lot of great detail in it. So just want to thank you for that going into this. At this point, I want to pass over to Kristen for.
Carl is always lately stealing my thunder a little bit. But no, thank you for the presentation. We do appreciate it. I will keep it brief, as I know the board has some comments, and I know you want to listen to what they have to say. But the proposed action is an unlisted action, subject to a coordinated review. The planning board declared its intent to be lead agency in September, or on September 20th, 2018. No objections to date have been received. Staff does have a few comments and is recommending that the board discuss the application but defer action with comments as noted in your latest recommendation, which is in your addendum packets this evening. And Lisa, I don't know if you want to comment on anything at this time.
No, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Kristen. Let's see, do we have no public hearing yet tonight, so let's just go around the board. Start with you, Peter.
First, if your purpose is to ultimately screen this vegetatively, you really couldn't have picked better plants. You have Norway spruce, Acusa dogwood. You got viburnum, witch hazel, and forsythia, all of which are rapid growers. They're attractive to look at. And the Norway spruce basically is a green wall. So I think in that regard, certainly in terms of the landscaping, you're on the right track. We had a comment from the DEC. Among those comments, under cultural resources, I don't know if this is something that we should follow up on. We've reviewed the statewide inventory of archaeological resources maintained by the New York State Museum and the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. These records indicate that the project is located within an area considered to be sensitive with regard to archaeological resources. I don't know if that's something that we should follow up on or not.
He has a response if you'd like.
We do have a letter from the Historic Preservation Office indicating that the project will not result.
Terrific.
Letter of no effect.
Could you share that with us?
I believe you have it. We can make sure you get that.
Great. I think something that we're going to discuss is possibly having a consultant to give us an independent viewpoint. Earlier, the comment was when you made the point about the attachment angle of the transmission line could not exceed 15%.
Degrees.
15 degrees, which obviously puts a severe constraint on how you can locate this. Now, I think we should have someone probably follow up on that and determine whether or not that could be a real clincher. So I think we probably want to have somebody take a look at that. If we're hiring a consultant in terms of placement for this type of facility, it's probably a question that we should ask them to make that the determination, because that's a pretty serious constraint.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of constraints with
Yeah.
substation siting that need to be considered.
Yeah, well, if we're going to get a second opinion, that's a pretty important determination.
If we should look, we want to look for a consultant with substation siting experience.
Now, in the geotech report, footings should be founded entirely on sound bedrock or on medium compact to very compact soils and/or granular fill that overlies these soils. To limit differential settlement of the structures, footings should not be founded partially on both soil and bedrock. And when I looked at the report, it's kind of hard to line up the boring sites with the location of the structure. So could you do that, or have someone do that and provide that to us?
We will. We will be providing full grading plans, and we can provide an indication as to where the bedrock cuts would be needed and how that compacted grade would work. Okay. So we can provide that information.
So moving forward, we would need to have that.
Yep.
And in the same report for infiltration testing, infiltration testing was performed at boring locations 1, 2, 5, and 6 in general accordance with NISDEC guidelines. The testing was not performed at locations INF3 and INF4 due to damage of the 4-inch PVC between the time of installation and when testing could be performed. I would ask our engineer, is that something that we should pursue? Since they didn't get the results from 2 of those INF in the infiltration locations, should there be a follow-up on that?
Yeah, one of our comments was that we did need to have testing in accordance with the guidelines in the DEC Stormwater Manual. And that, so as far as we're concerned, yes, that still needs to happen.
Okay. Just take it right now. I think.
If I may, is that in addition to the geotechnical reports that were provided with the February submittal?
Yes.
One other thing. Do you have a topo of this site that you could share with us?
We can provide that to the town.
I mean, in other words, the report that we have, there is a topo, but there were no designated distances. So if you could provide that, it would be very helpful.
We can.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, there are some steep slopes in there and some bedrock or whatever, right behind the current substation. Ben, do you have anything?
I'm not going to get as technical as Peter, but somebody mentioned about the driveways. I see you have two here, two new locations. I guess you looked at all the possibilities. Are these the best accesses to the site without affecting the neighbors?
There's, the southern driveway is in a very similar spot that what was provided in the August submittal. The northern driveway was shifted correspondingly with the 53-foot shift. We feel this is a better situation in that both curb cuts are set back further from Spring Road than the current driveway is today. And the sight lines have been provided, they've been added to the plan per the town engineer's comments on the earlier submittal. So we feel from an operation standpoint and a construction standpoint, and by setting the distances back further from the Spring Road intersection makes for the most advantageous layout.
And I think something that would be helpful is seeing the property owner parcels outlined similarly to how you have them on this property and in other projects we've actually had the placement of the home with the driveway. It just helps them when they're reviewing.
Right, we're trying to visualize where that
is on the other side of the road.
I think it has moved further south, so it's not directly across from the driveway anymore.
We can provide an interpolation from an aerial imagery and add that to the site plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you said there'll be transformers coming in and out, right?
Well, there'll be a transformer, there'll be the initial construction level work, and then when they have to be replaced, this is a fairly passive use. There's not a lot of traffic coming in and out of these types of substations, but during initial construction and then during long-term annual maintenance, then there would be activity at those driveways.
All right. You talked a lot about visibility and everything, may be silly, but what's the color of the building?
As shown in the simulation, I forget the spec, but it's gray. I think there's a spec for it. It's like ANSI 51 gray. It's a prefabricated steel type structure.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thanks, Ben. Let me jump over to Don, see if you have anything from a...
Other than the comment we just made, we're just looking for an updated SWIP, and most of our comments are site plan related for drainage.
Okay, yeah, he mentioned they don't need a pond there because they have a lot of infiltration.
Right.
Great. Rocco?
You mentioned that you plan not to decommission the current plan. What is the time frame to do that?
We would be decommissioning the existing substation as soon as the new substation, the replacement facility, is in service. We would go in and start that removal process.
And how long would that take approximately?
It may take anywhere 6 months to 9 months, and that, weather dependent. There are some issues like that, some staging, but it might take upwards of about 6 months to do the removals from the existing substation.
And once it's all cleared out, are you going to do any restorative work?
Well, what we would do is any of the pier-type foundations would be cut down to grade and left at grade. Any of the foundations that are at grade, below grade, would be removed. That would be filled in with stone. The existing area would remain fenced in, and we would have that secured. And it generally would just be available to us if we need to use it, as Greg said before, if there's any major storm issues, a response, that we could potentially use that area for temporary staffing and equipment reassignment out through that area, but it would not be used on a regular basis.
I have a follow-up to that.
Part of our
Was
plan?
that just a slab then ultimately becoming a meeting point, just a ground, everything's
Temporary
grade,
staging
everything's-
area, a
Correct,
temporary
okay.
staging area.
So no poles,
Nothing going
lightning.
into that yard, other than what would be going in transient to be able to address storm-type activities. And that would be for major storms.
And you have that as part of the plan? What he said?
We had provided
It's in
that
your
in our
demo. You did
original
provide that?
filing,
Okay.
in the project description.
And in the original visual analysis, if you look at the photo that was taken and then the simulation done from the intersection, the main intersection there, you'll see that infrastructure that was sticking up is no longer there. So it is reflected in the materials if we go back to that.
Yeah, just the stones being there. Paul?
Nothing at this time.
Well, that leaves me. I have a couple questions, of course. You mentioned the nighttime lighting would not be there. That's great, because we are concerned about light spillage and the view. But from a noise standpoint, I'd like to explain the hum a little more, because anywhere near the existing substation is a fairly loud hum, as well as the one over on Inwood Avenue I stopped to see. So, how much of a hum will this new infrastructure have versus the existing?
Well, the new equipment, the new transformers in particular, that hum that you're referring to is the core sound, as they refer that to. These would be lower in sound, in decibel at the property line, lower than the pre-existing ambient sound levels. All of this was provided in the acoustical report that we provided in the August submission originally. But what I can tell you from that report is that the overall ambient sound as it is, with the new substation in place, would be within 1 decibel of the existing ambient sounds. What that means is it's not detectable.
Less noticeable, okay.
Correct.
Is it just the vibration of the insulating liquid in the transformer or something like that? Or?
Well, the core sound, you mean, is, it's just inherent, it's an inherent nature of transmission, of transformer design and operation. The only other element to that would be a periodic use of fans. There are cooling fans on the hottest days when the station would be at reaching peak load, which are very few and far between. Fans might temporarily kick on, and then they would turn off.
I'm more concerned about the constant.
Understood.
And I did take note that the new one near Spackenkill, I did not hear a significant hum. So that was, I guess that's newer equipment there.
And I missed the first part of your statement, I'm sorry.
The one by Spackenkill Road.
The Spackenkill substation, okay.
I could not hear it as a lot of a hum there.
Okay.
Compared to the existing one in Naps.
Oh, okay, right, because that is a newer substation, Spackenkill, correct.
Yeah, the nap station, you can hear the hum from the shops up above, right across the street, so.
Yeah, very old substation, very old equipment.
And we already talked, we wanted to get out there and take a look, so you talked about you would mark out the footprints and where some
Absolutely,
of the equipment is.
we would like to have a licensed surveyor go out and stake the critical components of what we think is, really necessary for a robust and informative review of the site property, so.
If
Gladly
at
do
all
that.
possible, and we'll work on the scheduling of this, after tonight, but we'd like to do this in early, by early April, so that we still have a leaf-off condition, so we can see,
Sure.
what we're looking at. very well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're probably, we can probably make ourselves more flexible than this large board can. So first week of April is fine.
Okay, yeah, as soon as possible, that would be good. What would you say that, the size of this new substation is compared to the existing one or compared to the one at Inwood?
That's a good question. Inwood Avenue is approximately 56,000 square feet. The existing Knapp's Corners substation is approximately 36,000 square feet. The proposed replacement substation for Knapp's Corners is approximately 30,000 square feet. And by reference, the Spackenkill substation is approximately 36,000 square feet.
Okay, so it'll be smaller than Inwood or
Yes, sir.
Smaller than Inwood and smaller than Spackenkill as well.
That's correct.
Lastly, I guess that, just looking at the driveways, if it does have to go in this position, we're going to have, we're going to ask a consultant to try to verify your work as well. But is there any way to have the southern driveway go around the back of the plant so you don't need that northern access off of Kerr?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing I want to remind the planning board is that we would actually be eliminating the existing driveway off of Kerr Road that goes into the existing substation. We would be removing that and landscaping that in. So you would not have 3 access points off of Kerr Road. There would be 2 for the new substation. Secondly is we need the northern driveway on the new substation for a couple of reasons. One is we need to have access into that area of the substation to be able to work on substation equipment on that north end of the substation that we can't get into.
I understand. I was just concerned, I just wonder if there's another way to get access to it, because that's the closest one to the neighbor's house there, so.
Yeah, Greg may have some more thoughts.
The challenge.
I know there's some topography issues there too, so.
There you go.
Thanks, Anthony. The challenge is the topography. It is very ridged. So I don't know, given the evaluation we've performed to date, that we can do that. But what we can do is have that as a point of discussion while we're out in the field, so everybody can kind of see what the physical
Once it's
limitations
staked
are.
out, maybe
and then
that
we
will
can
help us understand it better as well.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for all the work you've done, and we hope to continue the discussions and move it along. Go ahead.
I move that the planning board defer on action on this application, authorize the planning department to retain an independent consultant or consultants per planning staff review comment. Number 1, in compliance with all local procurement policies or regulations, and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies included but not limited to the following.
Second.
9
Nine.
for comments tonight.
And 9.
9 per comments tonight.
Second again.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Great. Thanks. We look forward to continuing the discussion, but you understand all the neighbors' concerns, and I know you've tried to address it with a lot of, the landscaping, and that, see where we go from here.
Okay. Thank you for
Thank you
your
very
time.
much.
Good job putting all that effort into.
Thank you, I appreciate
Came up
that.
with for the last meeting.
Thank you.
Fun.
Oh, no, thank you. Are we not even mentioning that?
No, it's off the, I already mentioned it's off the agenda.
Okay.
Gravity. Yeah, let me just make sure I don't forget anything.
Correct.
Thank you. Want this stuff?
Did that wrong. Look out here.
All right, next up is Center Point Commercial Development. We need to reaffirm lead agency status and site plan review for proposed construction of a 4,860 square foot building for tenant retail business and restaurant uses with no drive-through and associated parking, utility connections, landscaping and lighting improvements on a site with an existing 11,265 square foot retail pharmacy. It's at 3350 Route 9 North, Zone BN, neighborhood business, 2.37 acres. It's an unlisted action, Marist Centerpoint LLC owner. Welcome, guys.
Good evening. My name is Justin Dates with Mazer Consulting. We're representing the applicant, Marist Centerpoint LLC. With me also tonight is
Philip Greeley.
Phil.
Good evening.
As you had mentioned, we had been before the planning board some time ago. There's new faces and whatnot before us. So if Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I can kind of take the
Yeah, I
board through
think
the
we
plan?
did. Yeah, we've had some new members on the board since the last time. It's been a while, so.
It's been a while, yeah.
So, a quick overview. Of
Sure.
What the project is.
Trying to steal our easel.
So just to orient everyone to the project site, we are located on where the existing Rite Aid is. If you're looking at on our plan on the bottom, we have Route 9 9G crossover. Route 9 would be on the right-hand side of the west, and Washington Street's over on the east side. So the site is essentially surrounded on three sides by roadways.
Right across from Maris there.
Correct. Yep, Maris is just across to the west there. So the site is about 2.37 acres in size. It does have, as mentioned, the existing Rite Aid facility, parking areas, and other site improvements, all connected to town water and sewer, and there is gas and electric, obviously, for that facility as well, which will play into some modifications that we need to do for our proposed building. But as you mentioned, it's in the BN Neighborhood Business Zoning District. And if you've been out to the site before, over on the east side here, there's a grass area. It's maintained lawn area right now. That's where we're looking for the proposed building. Also on that side, or the eastern side of Rite Aid, you have your drive-through canopy. There's some parking spaces back in that area, their dumpster, and kind of it's an underutilized parking area. If you've ever been there, I've rarely seen any car parked in those back spaces when I've been to the site. And you'll see how that kind of plays into our proposed design. So the facility has right now, Rite Aid, 64 parking spaces on site. By town code, it requires 50. So there's a surplus of 14 already on site. So our building is a 4,860 square foot building. The applicant has kind of broken it up into 5 potential tenants at this time. He does not have any users identified at this time. He obviously would like to fill all of them. And the makeup or the different types of uses he's looking for right now would be at max would be 2 restaurant tenants and 3 retail spaces. And you'll see that's our parking analysis that we had put together plays into the breakup of those 2 potential uses.
Okay, that answers one of my main questions, how many restaurants?
Yep. And what we did is, if you look on the southern side of the building, there's the tenant spaces there are the 2 largest. So we use that area for our potential restaurant space, and the rest would be retail.
So you're gonna have grease traps for those restaurants, right?
Yes, we do. In the design, we do have an exterior grease trap. There are some comments about modifications to it, but yes, that would be provided. So access into the site would remain as existing off of 9, and then also off of Washington Street. Those curb cuts we're looking to maintain. Essentially, also the existing circulation as it flows through Rite Aid and around their parking area, we would also look to maintain. What we've done is we have a proposed parking area on the east side of our building that shows 14 parking spaces, and that runs in a northerly direction. We have a one-way circulation as you come in through that, and it would link up to, right now, that would be the northeastern corner of the existing parking lot where it ends right now. I'm calling it the back. I kind of look at this area in between the 2 buildings almost as like a service area. As I mentioned before, you have drive-through canopy with the drive-through for Rite Aid. You have your dumpster already there. On the back of our building, or the west side of our building, that's where we would have the rear entrances to the tenant spaces. We have a loading service area in the back there as well. And then we also have, the island in the middle that would have some parking for the site.
So you would make use of that same dumpster?
Actually, no. We talked about the requirement to have another dumpster for our facility. So we have added a second dumpster in that same location.
But okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. So that's vehicular circulation, pedestrian. Being close to Marist, and this area is quite populated with commercial development. We have proposed 2 sidewalk connections to the existing sidewalk there. Right now, the sidewalk up on Washington just dead ends essentially at our driveway. So we would propose a sidewalk connection into the site and then tie that into the front facade of our building. We also would look to have one come up from the crossover here up into the site, and again get pedestrians that walking traffic. We would anticipate a good amount of walk-in or walking traffic in this location for this building. Let's see. So parking, just numbers. For our facility, it would require 20 spaces within the BN district. We have proposed 26 spaces, and how we've done that is, as I mentioned, right now, Rite Aid has a total of 64 parking spaces on site, and there's a surplus of about 14 from the requirement, right?
Okay.
All the parking built out on the the west side of the site for Rite Aid, as well as these adjacent, that totals 50 spaces. So we're saying, and which makes most sense, that those are Rite Aid spaces, right? And that's actually 4 over what the code requires for Rite Aid's facility. Okay. Then these, the 14 in front, as well as the 12 in the rear, is what we're saying, is associated with our proposed building. All right, so again, 20 is required. We've provided 26.
Is that your property?
It's all continuous.
So
It's all single parcel, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a shared parking concept a little bit with the...
Yes, and I think,
speak to that.
that's one thing, if we want to talk about now, Phil has prepared that parking analysis on how that integration that we've outlined would work.
Well, if you're finished with your overview, yeah, I'd like to have Phil mention that, because parking was a concern last time you came in.
Correct, yeah. So just a couple final items here. This building will also be hooked up to town water and sewer. Right now, there's a 2-inch service that comes out of Rite Aid and kind of cuts through that grassed area. So we'll have to do some modifications to their service, obviously, to build our building, as well to connect our service to the system. Sanitary sewer, there's a manhole out in the right-of-way, right in front of our site, that we would look to tie into. We have proposed a grease trap as well in connection with the potential restaurant uses. And then also there's a gas service for Rite Aid, which also goes through that grassed area, which we'll have to work with the utility provider to relocate that.
All right. Thanks.
That summarizes.
Go ahead,
Talk
Phil.
about parking.
Yeah.
Philip Greeley. We prepared a shared parking analysis, so I think in terms of the code requirements and the practicality of the uses, we looked at it from the standpoint of the retail space, the restaurant space, and the pharmacy being all on the one site. And we looked at not only the town's code, but the Institute of Transportation Engineers parking requirements, and the Urban Land Institute in terms of looking at a shared parking, because the peaking of the uses here don't peak all at the exact same time, and there would be some cross-utilization on the one site expected here. Two things I'd like to point out. We haven't taken any credit for the proximity of the mass transit and walk-in trips, which would be significant on this site, I believe. We've based it on standard parking requirements for suburban locations, but not with a significant walk-in nature. So I think it's conservative approach that we've taken here in terms of the number of spaces. Based on the shared parking scenario, when the highest utilization for all three would occur, we came up with about 70 parking spaces being filled on the site. And I think we're showing 76, I think, is what's proposed. And I think, you know, it might be a little conservative because we think there's going to be, you know, more walk-ins. We're trying to make the right pedestrian accommodations to get people on and off of the site. I know that your traffic consultant had, you know, reviewed the parking. His biggest concern was distance to some of the parking spaces. But from a practical standpoint, I think, you know, the pharmacy spaces will be more towards the front on Route 9 because that's where the entrance is. So we would anticipate that for the retail and the restaurant spaces would be, you know, in the east side of the building, the rear of the building, and maybe some of the spaces along the side of the pharmacy, which would be the closest proximity. Now, again, we're not talking about crazy distances. Even if you had to park in the closest space to Route 9 to get to one of these buildings, you know, you're 300 feet. Yeah, it's a distance, but it's not unwalkable.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that was his comment, was just the concern of the distance. I think methodology he was okay with. He did raise the fact that the original traffic analysis of this site was done back in 2014, so he was asking for an update. Again, I think, you know, we can provide that information. I don't think it's going to show any drastic changes for this size building, what the impact is, but we will provide that information. So I think there's some minor circulation comments that we can address, and, you know, we'll get whatever else the board has, we can, you know, fold into the plans then.
All right, thanks. I mean, should have walk-in traffic, as you mentioned, from Marist as well as
absolutely,
well as from the hospital.
So. Correct.
I don't know if it's worth talking to Rite Aid about those, you know, the spaces on the north side of the Rite Aid building, perhaps, or something that where the Rite Aid workers park now.
Yes.
If the Rite Aid workers could park more in the front, then that would give you some.
Open those up.
Open those up for more close to that, so that's one idea.
Yes.
All right, let's start with Eric.
Okay. Couple of points for the board. The comments are here. A couple of points to stress. One is we thought that the traffic generation of the consultant will deal with that, but we thought for the board it should also indicate the sight lines. It's a fairly unusual configuration of roadways in the vicinity, and past proposals here there's been a lot of discussion about safety and approaches. So we've asked for some sight lines and stopping distances to be shown for the board to evaluate, and for the consultant. That would be from the new, because that entrance will have
we
a
have
lot more.
taken, you know, as part of the planting plan here, you know, that was one of the concerns, to keep low plantings, but we'll provide the sight lines.
That would be helpful. I thought the board may want to discuss, there were two thoughts that staff had with the layout that the board might want to discuss tonight. One is that I don't know what kind of queuing is expected, or also, I'm sorry, not just queuing, but on the entrance to the site, traffic coming off of Route 9G Washington Street. It's a pretty short distance to the turn into the parking lot east of the building, closest to Washington Avenue. And it appears that we'd be interested in having you talk with the board about the pros and cons of perhaps reorienting that access point a little bit further away from Route 9G to improve the safety there. That would be one discussion. Another one would be the need for the one-way access around the north end of the building. It doesn't seem to be serving any parking function, and although truck pathways haven't yet been shown, it doesn't appear likely that that access will be necessary for truck pathways. So again, if you could discuss that with the board. And then with respect to the parking, the traffic consultant did point out that he thought that when I spoke with him, that the trip generation, the parking demand was based on a shopping center use for the overall development, and the concern, although your numbers may appropriately address the overall parking demand, the concern was with the parking available for the new use. And he pointed out that the park, first of all, if there's more restaurant use than included in the projections, then obviously the parking demand will go up. So he wanted some clarification of a different way of looking at the parking calculations. Then, based on the numbers that you did provide, it demonstrated that there would be a regular demand for 33 spaces on a daily basis, where only, I forgot, either 24 or 26 spaces were available. And as you said, it's 350 feet. And again, that's up to the board. It could be, that's fine, people walk some distance. On the other hand, it's also not a pedestrian-oriented development. It's through a fairly trafficked area with a drive-through and dumpster facilities with no obvious pedestrian way from the ShopRite spaces to the new tenant uses. So those would be points of discussion that we'd recommend the board have with the applicant. And then we're only recommending lead agency reaffirmation at this point. And then they can, come back and respond to them.
All right, thanks, Eric.
Could we just cover a couple of those items, just in terms of what our thinking is, and then we'll, starting with the sight lines, we'll provide that. In terms of the proximity of the access, the internal driveway relative to coming in off of 9G there, we feel we can shift that a little bit, but if we do much more, we're going to lose more parking spaces. The idea there is to be one way so that traffic coming in that driveway, we wouldn't have exiting traffic. That's the reason for the north drive, the drive around the north side of the building is to get people to exit that way from the parking area. And that was the reason why we came up with that plan. In terms of the ability to shift that, we feel we can shift it a little further to get some more penetration distance. I think there was also a concern, Eric had mentioned in his review letter, about the width of the entry driveway. What we had shown there is how those lanes are striped today. So we're going to look at restriping those to give more width on the inbound. It's a 3-lane driveway. It's 1 lane in, 2 lanes out. So we feel that on the left turn exit, we can maybe reduce that width a little bit and provide a little bit more width on the entry. So instead of, a 10-foot lane, we'd have a 12-foot lane entering. The other point on the north, the driveway around the north side of the building, again, it's really to get traffic to circulate when they're leaving, to come around the building, be further away from the driveway connection to 9G Washington Street, to get them away from that. So that's part of what our thinking was with that. And then in terms of, I think there was a question about impervious area. We feel that the drive aisle on the west side of the building, which is shown as the standard 26 feet, we may be able to pick up some more area in the islands if we were to bring that down to 24 feet. It's not a long run, but, I think there was a concern about the amount of impervious, and maybe we can, pick up some impervious area there.
That might then, are you talking about making the two-way aisle immediately west of the building narrower? Because
Yes.
isn't that also the truck loading area?
Yeah, so we would keep the loading area. So the loading area is separate from the drive aisle. It's tucked in. I think Justin can point it out on the plan. But just to bring the end islands out slightly, to create some more additional green area in the end islands. So it really, it wouldn't affect the loading area. In fact, it would tuck the loading area in a couple of feet off of the travel lane, which may be desirable also.
So the lane that Phil's speaking of is the one directly behind our building here. As you said, right now it is 26 feet. We would reduce it down to 24. I mean, that's a standard width. But I guess it would just be if we can make that reduction without it being a variance. That's the only
Depends
thing.
if the fire department agrees with that too. It's usually fire equipment getting around the building is
Absolutely.
26.
Okay.
It may not be something to do. All right. Let's go around the board quick. Ben, start with you today. You have anything? Any comments, Ben, on this one?
No, not right now.
Peter?
There is an elevation change from the southwest corner to the northwest corner of about 6 feet, from 113 feet to 107 feet. Is there going to be a basement in this building?
No, it would not have a basement.
You have stairways in the rear.
Yes.
And you have a loading area just west of the stairways. How will the loading be accomplished? In other words, if I'm making a delivery in a truck, how do I get my goods from the loading area into the building?
So you're correct. On the back there, we did have to. There is some grade change across that, right? So we have to make up.
Significant. Yeah.
We have to make up that grade change, and for access to the rear, it did need staircases. So if whatever they may be bringing can go up the stairs, that's the way that they would have to go. Otherwise, they may have to wrap around the building.
They would have to wrap around the building if there's too many stairs, especially if it's a restaurant and they have a dolly full of food.
Correct.
That won't go up a bunch of stairs.
Correct.
One or
Correct.
two maybe, but not
Correct.
six
Yep.
or more.
So it's going to be dependent upon the product that's getting delivered.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that the access is constrained in terms of being able to make deliveries. That would be one comment. Another comment I have is, the Rite Aid store. Rite Aid is really, I'm not going to say they're in jeopardy right now, but I think they are. There is a question mark about Rite Aid's viability going into the future. Not my opinion. It's something that I have heard. You have a store there that's 11,265 square feet, and they have 39 parking spaces according to this plan, which would not be sufficient for a new tenant, or if they were to break the building up into 5 2,000 square foot stores or whatever. I think that's just something that we should take into consideration moving forward, that things change in the future. We want to be sure that allocation right now is below the BN allotment for parking.
Just to clarify, it's not the
I
right.
get 4 spaces per 1,000.
Yeah, so they would require 46 spaces.
I count 39.
You,
according to this plan, anyway.
No, that's available, like on-site available. They have 50. With our
I
layout.
don't see them. I'll look again, but I just counted what they have on here. And
Yeah, there's definitely 50 parking spaces available that go around on the north side, and then of course the whole parking lot on the west.
I'm looking at north, east, and west sides. But I mean, we don't have to debate that. I mean, we'll look
We'll
at
show you
that.
the exact count
Yeah.
of the spaces.
Okay. But anyway, the concern would be again the loading the capacity and to the rear of the building seems to be highly constrained. I think it's something we probably should take a look at.
Okay.
All right, go to Nicole.
I don't really have too much here, just a couple of comments. Just that you're going to need a highway work permit and fire service connection is going to be required, obviously.
Actually, if I just comment on that, I did speak to the architect, and from the potential restaurant tenants,
Right.
the sizes and the estimated capacity of those patrons, it would not require fire service for those, based on building code, is what he's telling me.
Okay.
Check. But we'll provide response to that,
Okay.
for sure.
They'll be sprinkled, I assume?
I'm sorry?
Will they be sprinkled? Those
No, it
buildings?
would not require sprinklers.
Okay, oh, that's.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep, okay.
Rocco?
Okay. There's currently a road that goes west to east, maybe Eric is the one I should ask first. Isn't there a road that goes west to east on the south side of Rod Aid that comes out on Washington? I mean, you can go behind to the building for the drive-through, but then it also continues, and I know people have taken another shortcut to go along that road from Route 9 to get onto Washington. I can't tell from this plan. It looks like on the drawings here that that road now will only go into where the drive-through is, and it won't go all the way through anymore.
No, it would remain as it is today. We did not restrict that.
Internal drive aisle that's there today that's used as the cut through because there's nothing on this lot would remain. That same drive path would be available.
I mean, it has pavement markings there that you're not supposed to cut through there.
It's striped, correct.
It's striped as a no-go zone, but.
It will.
Well, okay, but it looks like where your cutout is to get onto Washington, looks like it's going to be north of where it currently is, or is this where it currently?
That's the existing location. We're maintaining that.
You are,
as is,
okay.
yes.
Yep.
So
We're going to
that's-
just restripe it.
You're going to restripe that, so that seems like there's going to be a lot of traffic going that way. That may have to be looked at. I'm sure you looked at that, Eric. It's just, what are your comments on that?
I'm not, about the internal drive aisle, like
Right.
Phil said.
Cut through.
As far as cutting through from Route
Right,
9 to
but
Washington
that's still
Street.
viable with this plan here? I mean, I've got.
It's like Phil
concern
said,
about-
it's not going to change.
Yeah.
So the access is there. It's intended primarily for the drive-through, but I think Phil indicated there's nothing preventing people from continuing through to Washington Street. On the other hand, maybe you can address whether or not there's any significant cut-through traffic or not.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. When we did the original traffic study back in 2014, there were trips that cut through. I don't think it was significant in terms of the numbers. I'd have to go back and look, but we'll get you an answer on that.
It's just paint on the pavement, and you can see from the aerial it's worn off a bit.
Correct.
So there is some cut through there, but.
Yes.
And then on the north part of the building, in order to get to these new stores, you have to go behind them and then to the front.
If you're entering
From
the
Rite
front,
Aid.
yes, the
Okay.
front, yes.
Okay.
Or just park in the back,
Or just park in the back if you can.
either way.
Either there, because I share Peter's concern with the loading area. I saw that and I said,
Yes.
that's going to be very fun for any trucker to get in there and to unload and keep that aisle open.
Okay, we'll look at that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, just one quick, we also provided building elevations, which specify, some of the colors and materials. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at that. We were just hoping if there was any initial feedback at this point.
My only feedback would be, make sure there's no rooftop equipment being seen. Because
Okay.
you show parapet, you show some peak roof and, I'm trying to find it right now.
Yeah,
Peak roof in one area, but not all the way across.
Yeah, so the mechanicals would be rooftop, but we'll look to screen them as you've identified.
Yeah, the two stores in the middle, don't have looks to be a flat roof, so I don't know if there's a parapet there that's hiding.
Yes,
equipment or not.
you're right on. So that's that's where they would be proposed, but like I mentioned, we would look to make sure those are screened.
Yep. Otherwise, anyone else have any architecture comments at this point?
No.
All right, Nicole.
I gotta say, it's
Sorry.
Congratulations on the improvements from 2014.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not bring that one for certain reasons.
It is much better, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I move that the planning board reaffirm its intent to continue to be lead agency and coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action and to authorize the planning department circulation of a notice of said intent, copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move that the planning board determine the application is incomplete for seeker review, defer action on this application, and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, included but not limited to the following 1 through 11.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you,
Good
Eric.
luck with your continued planning. Next up on the agenda is Fox Run, also known as Fairview Commons, time extension of the required construction commencement date for Building A pursuant to approved amended site plan for phasing 1 to 60 Campus View Court, Zone FC, Fairview Center District, and PROD, Planned Residential Overlay District, 13.895 acres. A secret negative declaration was adopted August 21st, 2014, and amended site plan approval issued on June 15th, 2017. Fox Run at Fulton LLC owner.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Kelly Leibold with Page Park Associates. I think everyone here knows that Fox Run was previously approved by this board in 2015 and then again in 2017. The project included a total of 3 buildings, so we called it Building A, Building B, Building C. I don't know why we did it backwards, but we built Building C first, then Building B, and now we're left with Building A. So Building A is the subject of the discussion here tonight. The approval in 2017 had a criteria on it that the applicant had to submit a building permit request, I think by April of 2019. And then if not, I believe the application lapsed. Do I have that right? So we're here tonight to really request an extension of that critical timeline. And I've discussed this at length with Eric, and we were previously didn't want to come before the board because we had a transaction that we were trying to finalize. The applicants are under contract to purchase the Avello property, which is, I think many of you know, along Fulton Street. It's to the west of the existing Fox Run facility. At the same time, we also bought a little parcel that no one really even knows where it is, but it's in the back of the property. So just to orient you, this is Fulton Street. And these are the 2 buildings that are constructed. Cedar Avenue is on the other side. Marist College is to the top. So there was a little parcel in the back here on the end of Lake Street that was in a tax sale. And so we bought it because it just made sense. It was connected to the property. Don't have any plans at the moment, but maybe some little recreational area that we would put there. So the existing building that this board had previously approved was a small rectangular building. It was 8,500 square foot footprint, and it fit within the criteria that the board had established under the prior neg deck. What we're going to propose to do is come before the town board, and this process is very convoluted, so I always have a PowerPoint when I actually apply and come before you. But it requires a rezone. And the rezone in this town is applied to the town board. Once the town board is comfortable with the application, then I come before the planning board and they do the seeker review, back to the town board for the rezone, and then back to the planning board for site plan approval. So after tonight, since we're moving along with the design of the project, we're hoping to very quickly apply to the town board to start that project. So I would suspect that will probably be before you in the not too distant future. I'm going to try to set up a meeting with Mike Welty and Mike Sifone so that we can just discuss what we're proposing. So the property that is under contract is, this sort of long area here. So what it allows us to do is put a slightly larger building on and add more appropriate parking on the property. So with your permission, we would like to try to extend that date so we can finalize this design and again apply to the town board and start that process. I think the project's been hugely successful. We've gotten nothing but great feedback. I'm happy to give anyone on the board a tour if you'd like to see the property, and we can walk you through some of the units. Within another month or two, a lot of the kids leave, school's ending, so it's a little bit easier. But if anyone wants to see a tour of the building, we're happy to take you through it. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I mean, mainly we're here for a time extension, but if anybody has any comments on the new proposed plan, speak up.
Yep.
But the only comment I have is you're going to eliminate the Avella building, which was formerly 4 and 8, and I helped pour the floor in there, so.
Oh, you did?
When it was 4 and 8.
When it was what?
When it was 4 and 8 car repair.
Oh, I didn't know that's what it was before that. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know
Before
it was.
Avella bought it.
I think it'll be, he's a great business owner, and I think it's a good addition to the Fox Run community. He's been a great neighbor. Through the whole process, he was a fantastic neighbor to us. So we've been very lucky.
And they worked mostly on BMWs back then, so. All
Those
right.
were the good old days.
I move that the planning board grant 1-year time extension to the effective dates of amended site plan Phase 2, construction land of Fox Run at Fulton LLC dated November 22nd, 2017 by revising amended site plan note number 2 to read as follows. If construction of Building A is not commenced by April 1st, 2020, the owner shall submit an application for amended site plan approval for the Building A phase area showing, among other items, landscaping, sidewalks, parking lot paving, and striping, and final grades. Said application shall be submitted to the planning board for consideration no later than the deadline of the board's regular June 2020 meeting. Failure to submit said plans are required herein shall be deemed a violation of the board's amended site plan approval.
Second.
Moved in second, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, good luck. And
We'll be back soon.
And keep in mind that rail spur will eventually be developed.
Yes, we met with the county executive about
accountant's
that.
working on that.
Mhm. Yeah, which is
Make
exciting.
sure that access is all worked out.
It's better for everyone.
Yep.
So I'll reach out to Mike and try to set something up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kelly, you're always here late. Next up is Burlington Coat Factory architectural review for a proposed to remove former Toys R Us vestibule and construct a new storefront for Burlington Coat Factory, including a complete interior remodel at 463 South Road, Zone BSC Business Shopping Center. 4.7 acres, Type 2 action, KLA BPL Portfolio LLC owners. Welcome.
Thank you.
Brief description of your project.
Mind just grabbing the microphone there, either sitting or
either sit or
taking the other.
If you want to stand, then grab the portable. Yeah.
I'm James Horsch with Onyx Creative, And last but not least, right?
Almost.
Hope you don't mind, I have like a 45-minute presentation.
Denied.
I don't know if this is on.
If you turn it on, just wait a second.
Takes about 3 seconds to.
Figured it out. Okay. I brought a material board for you all to look at. These are the materials that are proposed for the project. You want to pass it around? That was one of the comments that we received. And another comment that was received was to have some example photos of other Burlington stores that have been done recently. So we brought 2 of those to show you. Burlington has a new prototype, and that's what's being presented. I don't have anything large to show you. I think you all have copies maybe of this.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So they're going to tear off the front of that existing store and put in their new prototype look. That's the plan.
So those tiles are used on the right side?
Correct.
The door there?
The porcelain tile is where that little square heart is.
That's, all right, that's why it's an offset kind of look.
Now, our structural engineer and the architect who did the survey has confirmed that the masonry wall that makes up the front of the building stops in the middle somewhere. Okay, there's a large opening that's filled in with structural steel to create this existing look.
Mm-hmm.
So their new entrance is basically residing within that existing masonry opening. And it's also almost exactly centered on their space.
Right.
This is important to them.
So you're gonna have to fill in some of the, you're trying to match the existing brick there to do some fill in, where you remove.
That may be the case, but to be honest with you, I'm not positive. That existing masonry opening may start right exactly where that glass stops, and then the ephes begins. Does that make any sense? To the left of that tiled area where the little square heart is, that may be where that existing masonry opening starts. So there would not be conceivably any new brick to try and match the old.
Okay.
We're going to paint everything regardless. Okay, so...
You're gonna repaint the brick?
Yeah, all the masonry is getting painted.
Okay. That'll make it match even if you have to put something in there.
Sure.
I guess my biggest comment, anybody can chime in, but on all the rest of the buildings in the shopping plaza, all the signage is at kind of rooftop level. There's not a big parapet sticking up, so at the very least, I'd like to see that parapet stay at the existing height and not be going up further, which it appears to be just from the visual I'm seeing, although I don't see dimensions on there.
Yeah, it's 5 feet taller. Or a little less than 5 feet taller.
It's 4.2 feet.
4.2 feet taller.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that, you can keep that at the current level at least. We're trying to discourage higher.
Mhm. We can certainly propose that to our client. But the 34 feet is their prototype height. That's what they really want to get whenever they can.
Even some of the ones you passed around look lower than this, so. Guess that's my only comment. Anyone else have any?
No, my only comment was hoping that you guys would put another entrance on if you're looking at the building, on the right-hand side. And I only say that because you have a lot of other shops there, and some of those shoppers are already using some of the Toys R Us parking to the left of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had another entrance that was maybe on the right, you would have more parking to the right, and that seems to be an unutilized parking area. That was my only comment.
That does make a lot of sense from the parking point of view.
Yeah.
And even conceivably for a customer access point of view too, but from the retailer's point of view, they have just a single
Set.
entrance.
Right.
It's security, it's their store concept, it's more shelf space for things that they can sell. It's, you know.
I see they have some bathrooms in that corner as well, but. Yeah, I can see that issue. You might have to be parking further away depending on
Yeah.
whoever else is parking in that for the rest of the mall. Well, I move we accept architecture as presented with the condition that you look at lowering the height there to at least what it is today.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, folks.
Go for it.
Want me to do this or no?
Lastly, Town Board zoning referral amendment. Recommendation to the Town Board pursuant to Town Code Section 210-154 regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 210 zoning. The proposal would add a Section 210-62.1 entitled Chickens Keeping Of, and amend Section 210-9 entitled Definitions. It would also add Section 105 4V sub 36 to Chapter 105 about fees. Who wants to take
Yeah,
this
well,
one
I
on?
guess I'll take that one on. So, March 6th, the town board referred this by resolution to the planning board for an advisory recommendation. The town board will be holding a public hearing on April 17th, 2019, regarding this zoning amendment. Basically, the idea here was to create a permit process for folks that do want to keep a small number of chickens in their yard. It provides for some specific requirements to ensure that that is done without negatively impacting neighbors and so forth. The law itself was worked on, it was Councilwoman Ann Shershin was sort of the principal person working on this and involved the legal department, planning, zoning, building department. So I think we've captured most of the comments that we got from each of those different departments, and there may be some small minor modifications that could be made, but generally we think it's worth providing a positive recommendation for at this time. So.
All right. Anyone have any comments of discussion for this?
Did you say that Councilwoman Shershin hatched this idea?
She hatched this idea. Very good, thank you.
Peter.
And with that,
way to end the night.
Yeah. I'll make sure she watches this.
She does, that's why I said it.
I move we convey a positive recommendation to the town board regarding adoption of the proposed code amendments.
Second.
Call to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Before we terminate the meeting or have a motion to it, Christian just pointed out that we didn't address seeker on the architectural review for the Burlington, so I would just like the court. 9 o'clock, right? I'd like the board to recognize, make the actual motion that it has been classified as a type 2 and no further seeker actions required. So if we can have that motion in a second.
I move that the planning board determine that the proposal meets the criteria for a Seeker Type 2 action pursuant to Seeker Part 617.5C1.
Second.
Moved and seconded for seeker of the Burlington Coat Factory application. Call to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching us on that.
That this meeting be terminated.
Second.
Motion to move to terminate.
Just had to turn my alarm off.
Called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Alarm set.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I walked out.
We are,
Night.
good night.
Like, oop.